A foodie girl, out buying a midnight snack, gets into an unexpected car accident and crosses over into another world, becoming a maid. In this new world, armed with the delicacies of her previous one, what sort of strange destiny awaits her? The young man was cautiously pouring a potion into the pot. Just as success seemed imminent, a sudden sound startled him. In his shock, the potion bottle slipped from his grasp and fell into the pot. Instantly, a deafening roar erupted within the room. Simultaneously, in another dimension, the girl stared around in bewildered horror, unsure how she had arrived here. She pondered for a moment, seemingly recalling something. It turned out she had been too focused while going out to buy food and failed to notice the large truck approaching from behind. Consequently, she was hit. It seemed she had already met her demise. So, could this place be the legendary afterlife? The next second, she grabbed her hair, filled with regret. If she had known, she wouldn't have stayed up late binge-watching dramas, nor would she have groggily gone out shopping when hunger struck at 5 a.m. Thinking of the pudding in her fridge brought even sharper pangs of grief. If only she had eaten it sooner. After venting her emotions, she sighed. Was she destined to remain here forever? Just then, a bright light flashed. When she opened her eyes again, her surroundings had completely transformed. Floating mountains, glowing flora, giant mushrooms. Could she have arrived in heaven? However, when she saw her reflection in the mirror, she was stunned. Her hair had grown longer, and her chest had become fuller. What exactly was this place? Why was she lying in this bed? She looked around. Could this be the legendary transmigration? She decided to go out and investigate first. However, noticing her attire, she was initially shocked, then captivated by her current figure and the style of the clothes. Just then, a knock came from the door. Seeing the unfamiliar young man, her heart instantly raced. Following him to the living room and listening to his explanation, she finally understood her current identity, a commission maid. After careful consideration, she concluded that what she needed most right now was stable lodging and money. Thus, she decided to accept the commission. Once they reached an agreement, the young man introduced himself. His name was Murichi's Randalonen, but she could call him Nan. The girl shook his hand, replying that her name was Xiaoming. She asked for his consideration going forward. Her duties involved cleaning and preparing meals. He handed her a spatial pouch. The money for purchasing necessary items was stored within this crystal. She picked up the crystal, examining it closely. Suddenly, she noticed Nan's gaze fixed intently on a certain part of her body. Her eyes widened instantly. She slapped him. Nan stammered an explanation. There was a large tear at the back of her skirt, and he was just trying to confirm it. She turned her head and indeed found a large rip on her skirt, unable to help but lament what exactly she had been through. There were scorch marks on her clothes, and her head throbbed intermittently, then began to break out in a cold sweat. It was because his magical shield, carrying sparks, had collided with her. But considering her temper, he decided it was best not to tell her the truth. He briefly recounted the events, telling her he had saved her, then urged her to quickly take a bath and change into clean clothes. Outside the door, Nan instructed her to familiarize herself with the surroundings first. Work would officially begin tomorrow. The room she was just in would be her bedroom from now on. Soaking in the bathtub, Xiaoming pondered. Everything before her eyes was of a style she had never seen. She touched the water. This tangible sensation couldn't possibly be a dream. Could something as absurd as transmigration have truly happened to her? Suddenly, her stomach rumbled loudly. She was incredibly hungry. When she saw the food on the table, however, she hesitated. After much deliberation, she decided to try the soup first. The soup contained nothing but salt and tomatoes. Next, she picked up a slice of what looked like boiled meat. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be half-cooked bread, crunching loudly as she bit into it. It was incredibly hard. She almost couldn't resist flipping the table. For a gourmet like her, this was simply unbearable. Later, through Nan's explanations, Xiaoming gradually came to understand the situation in this world. Here, people didn't concern themselves with culinary techniques. As long as one could fill their stomach, it was sufficient. The appearance and taste of most ingredients were similar to those in her original world. Moreover, she could surprisingly understand the language and writing here. What puzzled her was that although some ingredients were edible, the descriptions in books on how to use them left her completely baffled. It seemed she would have to experiment herself. The next day, Xiaoming personally took charge of cooking. She first made a delicious egg roll, then blanched asparagus in boiling water. Finally, he diced the apple, lemon, and pear into small pieces, added honey, and crafted a refreshing cold fruit beverage. Nan gazed at the breakfast Siam Meng brought over, unable to help but admire the thoughtfulness behind this meal. Siam Meng watched him spear a piece of the egg roll, his heart fluttering with slight apprehension, wondering if Nan's sense of taste had evolved. However, Nan's reaction brought him relief. The man hadn't expected that eggs could be prepared so deliciously. And the asparagus, Nan had always regarded it merely as an ornamental plant, never imagining it could actually be eaten. While savoring the delightful food, Siam Meng inquired about how to use the items Nan had given him yesterday. Nan looked at him, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Had he truly never used such things before? He explained the method. Simply open the bag, and information about the items inside would appear in one's mind. Reaching in allowed one to retrieve or store items. The bag could hold anything at all, except for living creatures. The one Nan gave him. That particular bag had a capacity limit of 300 types of items. Xiao Meng took out the crystal, then prompted him to try thinking of one gold coin. Following the instruction, he grasped the crystal. Just as instructed, a single gold coin materialized. His eyes lit up as he gazed at the coin, unable to resist biting it. Nan watched his utter fascination with the gold coin, thinking to himself, just how poor could he possibly be? On Item Street, in the eastern part of the Halayath Kingdom, Xiao Meng stood amidst the bustling heart of the market, marveling at the vibrant scene. Shops lined both sides of the street, displaying a dazzling array of goods. Yet, much to his surprise, he couldn't find any soap here. Washing with only clear water seemed hardly sufficient for thorough cleaning. Snapping back to reality, he quickly immersed himself in the joy of shopping. Wandering through the extraordinarily lively market, Xiao Meng discovered with delight that utensils of all kinds were readily available. Ingredients and seasonings were abundant and varied. The magical bag Nan had gifted him felt enchanted. No matter how many items he placed inside, it remained feather-light. Truly the perfect shopping companion. Once his procurement was complete, Xiao Meng returned home, elated. He took out a large piece of wild boar meat, deciding it would be the star of today's lunch. The wild boar here was a type of large mushroom called red mane. He first sliced the meat thinly, then mixed it evenly with various seasonings, letting it marinate for 30 minutes. While waiting, he busied himself preparing the side dishes. The marinated meat slices were coated in breadcrumbs, deep-fried in hot oil until golden brown on both sides, then removed to cool before being fried a second time. Paired with his homemade tomato sauce, the flavor was bound to be absolutely divine, and was deeply drawn by the aroma of the food. When his fork gently touched the crispy outer layer, it made a distinct crunching sound. He couldn't help but wonder if this thing was actually edible. However, as he cautiously placed the slice of meat into his mouth, the texture, crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, fragrant and juicy, made his eyes widen. It was unbelievable that this was the taste of wild boar meat. The taste, that crispy crust combined with the succulent meat, compelled one to take bite after bite. When Nan dipped it into the tomato sauce and tasted it, the unprecedented freshness of the flavor utterly intoxicated him. Yet, he had no idea that the red dipping sauce was made from tomatoes. Xiao Meng smiled and told him it was his homemade tomato sauce, especially suitable for pairing with fried foods, and called out his name. Meeting Xiao Meng's puzzled gaze, Nan broke into a radiant smile. Watching Nan reach out and firmly grasp his hand, Xiao Meng felt a surge of nervousness, unsure of what he intended to do. Nan leaned closer, their faces nearly touching. Xiao Meng was at a loss. When he heard Nan express the desire to keep him by his side forever, he was utterly stunned. Nan seemed to be uttering something incredibly astonishing. The next second, Nan's words jolted him back to reality. His intention was to keep him by his side permanently, and the pay would be doubled. So he had been referring to the contract all along. Nan handed him a brand new contract. If there were no objections, he could sign and affix his handprint. When he glimpsed the remuneration, his eyes practically turned into money symbols. 100 gold coins a month. He was truly going to strike it rich this time. However, he immediately grew cautious again. Could there be some hidden catch? He quickly scanned through it. The content seemed mostly fine. The job description remained the same. Only the employment term had changed from 1 year to permanent. This job offer was almost excessively tempting. Even if some mishap occurred midway, 1 month's salary would be enough to support him for quite some time. Having reasoned it through, he signed his name and pressed his handprint. The very instant he finished applying his handprint, the contract was swiftly snatched away. Nan carefully stored the contract and announced that from this moment forward, Xiao Meng had become his exclusive maid. Xiao Meng couldn't shake the feeling that he had somehow fallen into a trap. Just as he was lost in thought, a voice suddenly interrupted his musings. From outside the door, a alluring elf beauty gracefully approached. This elf beauty walked to Nan's side, intimately draping an arm over his shoulder, not forgetting to tease him a bit. Nan waved her arm off his shoulder. He clarified that Xiao Meng was the maid he had formerly hired from the guild. Then he pointed out the messy state of the house, declaring it was all her masterpiece, left behind after she made a mess and simply took off. Faced with Nan's accusation, the elf beauty put on a pitiful expression, claiming she usually took such good care of him. Just then, the elf beauty seemed to think of something. She walked over to Xiao Meng, extending her hand for an introduction. Her name was Yingyu, Nan's work partner. Xiao Meng politely introduced herself as well, but inwardly, she speculated. Judging by their intimacy, perhaps they were dating. After settling down, Nan asked Yingyu the purpose of her visit. Yingyu informed him that a rift had appeared in the eastern part of the dense forest, and rare magical creatures had already slipped through. His Majesty hoped they could subdue it as soon as possible, preferably departing immediately. According to reliable sources, it was a variant griffin. It was immune to divine attribute skills, could spew purple flames, and was exceptionally agile. While they conversed, Xiao Meng had already prepared some afternoon tea and snacks. Considering the dietary habits of elves, she had specifically prepared entirely vegetarian food. Nan told her Yingyu wasn't a picky eater and ate anything. Then he picked up a pastry, muttering to himself, "Indeed, Xiao Meng is still the best." Xiao Meng didn't quite hear him and turned her head towards him. He gently ruffled her hair, praising her cooking skills as unparalleled. Having said this, he pulled Xiao Meng into an embrace. She was the first person who made him eager to finish work quickly and return home. Listening to these ambiguously intimate words, Xiao Meng's face flushed crimson. She couldn't help but wonder if this guy was being intentional or unintentional. Nan's gaze also turned towards her, puzzled. He suddenly leaned closer, asking with concern why her face was so red. Was she catching a cold? Xiao Meng softly replied that she was quite all right. Those delicacies that had never received praise from a beauty, he was surprisingly the first to affirm them. Yingyu held her water cup, glancing over perplexed. Why had this guy suddenly become such a homebody? As she tasted the water in her cup, she was surprised to find it both cool and refreshing, her mouth filled with the rich aroma of lemon and strawberry. Her gaze shifted to the platter. The delicacies within made her even more expectant. She picked up a pastry and took a bite. The crust was slightly crisp and browned, while the sweet clarity of the apple inside was intoxicating. Truly delicious beyond measure. Upon learning that Xiao Meng had made all of this herself, she couldn't resist wanting to poach her. Nan, however, told her to dismiss the thought. As long as he didn't terminate the contract, Xiao Meng couldn't possibly work for anyone else. Yingyu was unconvinced, stating that an employee could leave simply by paying the penalty fee. However, Nan had already taken precautions. In the newly signed contract, he had modified the termination clause so that only the employer had the right to end the employment relationship. Xiao Meng took the contract, but couldn't see where Nan was referring to. Nan pointed to the spot. She still couldn't spot it. Unexpectedly, Nan actually took out a magnifying glass, explaining the print was too small and required magnification to be seen clearly. Xiao Meng instantly flared up in anger. Why did only the employer have the right to terminate the employment? This clause was as tiny as an ant, nearly impossible to discern. She considered it fraud and absolutely refused to accept it. Nan, afraid she might tear up the contract, quickly retrieved it and hid it away. Then he gently put an arm around Xiao Meng, whispering to her that Yingyu had some peculiar habits. Yingyu's ears twitched slightly, clearly having overheard Nan's comment. She stepped forward, grabbed him by the collar, and started accusing Nan of spreading rumors. Before departing, Nan came to the garden to instruct Xiao Meng that he would be away for about 20 days. During this time, she was free to manage her own schedule. Hearing this, Xiao Meng inwardly rejoiced. Finally, she could slack off and enjoy herself to the fullest. Seeing her vivid expression, Nan couldn't help but lean closer, wanting to know what she was thinking. Xiao Meng, startled, turned bright red, and quickly took several steps back, vehemently denying she was thinking anything at all. Nan looked at her, puzzled by such a strong reaction. Xiaoming thought Nan had further instructions and waited for him to speak. In the end, Nan just patted her shoulder, saying he would notify her before his silent return. Then he flashed a greedy smile, demanding a lavish feast for his celebratory return. Not to be outdone, Ingyu raised her hand, demanding to be included, stating she would also attend. Xiaoming nodded in agreement, promising to prepare enough food for everyone. Hearing this, Ingyu enthusiastically stepped forward, wanting to give Xiaoming a kiss. Nan stopped their playful antics, urging them to hurry and set off. Xiaoming watched them go until they disappeared into the distance. Turning back, he took out the soybeans, planning to start making soy sauce. 2 months flew by an instant. Not only had he successfully made soap, but he had even developed an all-purpose cleaning liquid. Although the process was a bit tedious, it certainly solved many washing problems and saved considerable time. As he busily packaged the soap, he couldn't help but worry about Nan and Ingyu's safety. 2 months had passed, and they still hadn't returned, sparking unease. During this time, he had also managed to craft all the daily necessities one by one. Just then, a message finally arrived from Nan, informing him they would be home by noon today and were eagerly anticipating the celebratory feast. Hearing Nan's mischievous tone, Xiaoming felt a flicker of annoyance, but the preparations for the feast could not be neglected. He took out a prime cut of black cattle tenderloin, thinking that a feast naturally called for hot pot. Thus, he washed various fresh meats, sliced them, and arranged them meticulously by cut on platters. The vegetables were similarly prepared and set on the table. Finally, he began to personally stir-fry the hot pot base. Just as the broth and assorted ingredients were ready, the sound of Nan returning home echoed from outside. The two returned, practically faint with hunger. Ingyu caught the rich aroma wafting through the air. Her mouth couldn't help but water. Their timing was perfect. The hot pot was just coming to a boil. Ingyu gazed at the lavish spread of ingredients covering the table, her eyes sparkling with anticipation, eagerly asking what kind of delicacy this meal was. Xiaoming proudly introduced it as hot pot, a delicacy from his homeland. He then began instructing the two on how to enjoy it. First, place the desired ingredients into the pot to cook, then dip them in the specially made sauce before eating. Then followed his instructions, cooked a piece of meat, dipped it in the sauce, and popped it into his mouth. He immediately exclaimed how incredibly delicious it was. Ingyu, not wanting to be left behind, hastily tried it as well. She hadn't expected it to be so tasty. Having not eaten a proper meal in 3 months, this single bite seemed to bring her back to life. As the meal progressed, Nan and Ingyu even started playfully fighting over a piece of meat. Xiaoming couldn't help but chuckle secretly, bringing out more ingredients and assuring them there was plenty. He placed drinks on the table and then inquired about their work. Nan slowly recounted that the subjugation mission this time had been quite arduous, requiring considerable effort to resolve. Unexpectedly, they were then ambushed by a group of Highlanders. Hearing this, Ingyu angrily slammed her cup down. If they hadn't just endured a fierce battle, she would have definitely taught those fellows a lesson about proper conduct. Hearing that both were injured, Xiaoming quickly asked if the injuries were serious and if they needed medical attention. Nan gently cupped his face, telling him they had already used magic for healing. He explained that there would be some after effects from the treatment. Their bodies would feel exceptionally tired. Having said this, he gently kneaded Xiaoming's cheek, remarking how soft his face was. Xiaoming blushed crimson, pushing Nan's hand away, muttering inwardly that he couldn't let Ingyu misunderstand. Xiaoming knew that what they needed most right now was rest. An idea flashed through his mind, a perfect way to alleviate fatigue. So, he invited Ingyu to enjoy a floral bath with him, claiming it could effectively soothe tiredness. The two arrived at the edge of the bath. Xiaoming handed Ingyu a bar of soap, suggesting she thoroughly cleanse her body with it before soaking. Xiaoming patiently taught her the correct way to use the soap. After washing, Ingyu slowly eased her body into the bath. She couldn't help but let out a sigh of contentment. "This feels amazing," she murmured. She became deeply interested in this bathing method Xiaoming had invented, as well as the soap itself. Xiaoming explained that where he came from, work pressure was immense. both tedious and oppressive. Therefore, he had devised this method to properly reward himself. Learning that Ingyu liked his soap, Xiaoming generously offered to give her some. Hearing this, she enthusiastically embraced him. A dazed, infatuated smile spread across Xiaoming's face. He thought to himself, they really are big and soft. But then he remembered something and reminded Ingyu that she needed to keep her boyfriend in check, telling him not to be overly gentle with other girls. Ingyu was puzzled by his words, tentatively asking if he meant Nan. She then clarified to Xiaoming that they were just friends. Seeing Xiaoming's incredulous expression, Ingyu couldn't help but laugh out loud, explaining they had grown up together since childhood, their relationship akin to that of close siblings. Ingyu teased that Nan might harbor ulterior motives towards him or have feelings for him. Xiaoming's cheeks flushed upon hearing this. He muttered under his breath that ulterior motives seemed more likely. Ingyu heard him and shot him a meaningful glance. Who knows? The next morning, finding the others still asleep, Xiaoming tiptoed off to wash the clothes. Just then, a handsome elven man appeared at the door, asking if Nan was home. Xiaoming opened the door, politely inquired about his business, invited him into the living room, and served him exquisite pastries and tea, asking him to wait a moment. The elven man accepted the teacup, yet seemed quite unfamiliar with this type of beverage. This handsome elf was named Chris, a highly skilled artisan, or rather a prince. As the three were engaged in lively conversation, Nan walked over and sat down opposite Chris. It turned out Chris had come under the orders of His Majesty. He had also brought generous rewards. However, Nan's attention seemed entirely focused on the pastries in his hand. He interrupted Chris's pleasantries, asking him to get straight to the point. The rewards bestowed by His Majesty included, for each of them, a portion of variant griffin meat and tailbone, along with 2,000 gold coins. Xiaoming had initially been captivated by the meat Chris brought, but upon hearing Nan's words, she immediately snapped back to reality, whispering to Nan for confirmation. So, Chris was actually a prince. She instantly felt a bit impolite. Having only prepared ordinary tea and pastries, Nan was clearly a bit hungry. He instructed Xiaoming to take a share of the meat and prepare something to eat. And you also asked her to take her portion as well, adding a reminder to make plenty. Based on the description of variant griffin meat in the illustrated guide, Xiaoming thought its texture might be similar to marbled beef. Thus, she took out a sharp knife, her mind already set on the best way to prepare it. Xiaoming first soaked the tailbone in clean water for about 30 minutes to remove the blood. Once the water boiled, she added the appropriate seasonings. After bringing it to a rolling boil, she turned the heat down to a low simmer for 5 minutes, then reduced it further to a gentle simmer. When a meat became tender, she added white radish and a suitable amount of salt. Bringing it to a boil again over high heat, she then turned it back down to low, simmering until the radish was soft and tender. Next, she pan-fried the meat steaks, turning them every 15 seconds, repeating this 3 times before removing them and dicing them into small cubes. She returned the diced meat to the wok for a quick stir-fry, finally drizzling dark soy sauce over it for color. Once all the dishes were ready, she began the final plating. Ingyu, long drawn in by the enticing aroma, was eager to taste it. Chris looked at the delicacies Xiaoming brought to the table, curious about this novel preparation method, and even more tempted by the fragrant scent wafting towards him. Beside them, Ingyu had already started feasting heartily, letting out satisfied sounds of praise from time to time. Chris hesitated for a moment, then finally speared a small piece of meat and tasted it. The instant he took the first bite, he was conquered by the wonderful texture, feeling that all the food he had eaten before paled in comparison. Even the side dishes of potatoes and vegetables exuded a rich, meaty fragrance. The fruit added to the red wine transformed the originally inexpensive wine into something luxurious, its chilled taste utterly intoxicating. After finishing the meal, they felt their bodies surge with energy. Although eating griffin meat wasn't supposed to have any special effects, the only thing the three of them had in common was having tasted Xiaoming's cooking, then used magic to inspect the food Xiaoming had made, and the results were astonishing. Each dish actually possessed different magical properties. Ingyu looked at Xiaoming in disbelief. Her food had somehow been imbued with magical power. Xiaoming quickly explained that her cooking methods were just ordinary, everyday techniques, and the seasonings were merely common ingredients like ginger and pepper. The others stared at her in shock. Those materials, commonly used in alchemy, were being used by her as simple seasonings. No wonder Nan always felt these materials were running low. They were primarily used for repairing cracks in the magic walls and were extremely precious. Xia Ming innocently fiddled with her fingers. In her hometown, these things were mainly used for flavoring. After hearing this, the three unanimously agreed that Xia Ming needed to learn some magic. Chris volunteered enthusiastically to teach her magic, but Nan interrupted him. He argued that as an accomplished mage himself, he could teach her. There was no need to look further afield. Then, he looked seriously at Xiaoming, solemnly stating that he, the magister, would personally instruct her. Nan began to impart magical knowledge to Xiaoming. He first took out a magic stone used for testing magical affinity. It could enhance and release magic. Everyone possessed their own corresponding magical attributes. Ordinary people usually had life-related magic like fire, water, wind, and earth. Special attributes included ice, lightning, and holy magic, while plant and dark magic were typically race-specific traits. After explaining these basics, Nan used the magic stone to demonstrate how to summon water. Xiao Ming watched the scene unfold before her, utterly amazed, then handed the magic stone to her, gesturing for her to try. Xiao Ming excitedly took the stone, her heart filled with anticipation, hoping she possessed the talent befitting a protagonist. She closed her eyes, concentrating her mind. The magic stone began to glow. She watched with bated breath, wondering what miracle would happen next. After the test concluded, Xia Ming gently brushed her hair back, still immersed in self-admiration. In the next second, Nan's words fell like a heavy mountain, crushing the air from her lungs. The test results showed she possessed only two attributes, fire and water. She was just an ordinary person. She couldn't accept this reality. But the thought of testing her offensive capabilities next gave her a renewed sense of determination. As the protagonist of the story, she reasoned she must possess formidable attack power. Surely, in the near future, she would become a great mage. Save the world, capture the heart of a tall, rich, handsome man, and reach the pinnacle of life. Filled with confidence, she attempted a fireball spell. Yet, the next second, only a wisp of green smoke curled in her palm. Hope seemed to shatter. Nan comforted her, explaining that magic wasn't simply about chanting incantations. Hearing this, hope rekindled within Xiao Ming. She believed there was still a chance for her to learn offensive magic. For days passed, Xiao Ming finally grasped the gap between reality and fiction. The so-called protagonist's halo didn't exist. To make matters worse, Ingyu remarked that her accent was too strong, dealing her a heavy blow. Afterwards, Ingyu handed her a magic scroll, suggesting she give it a try. Xiao Ming took the scroll, and after confirming Ingyu wouldn't take it back, she carefully unfurled it. The scroll glowed brightly before vanishing into thin air. When she casually glanced at the fruit platter, she was astonished to see an identification panel automatically appear beside the fruit. Her hand could even pass right through it. She was ecstatic. She had finally learned her first spell. Seeing Nan's serious expression, Xiao Ming assumed he was about to demand tuition fees. However, Nan had no such intention. He merely asked her to prepare some supplies for a journey, as he planned to take her to the Fine Mabel dungeon. Xiao Ming didn't understand why they needed to go there, but Ingyu seemed to have already guessed Nan's purpose. Chris wanted to join them as well. Nan initially tried to refuse, citing Chris's status as heir to the throne. But Chris informed him that he had already renounced his right of succession. Furthermore, as the elf with the strongest defensive capabilities in the entire kingdom, he was confident he could protect everyone. Xiao Ming interrupted their conversation, terrified at the thought of the mysterious dungeon. Feeling she would only be a burden, she decided to stay behind and watch the house. Nan reassured her not to worry. She knew some healing magic. Ingyu and Chris would also be accompanying them. Ingyu, seemingly sensing something, pushed Chris away, agreeing to meet up the next day. After the two left, Nan looked at Xiao Ming, telling her to rest assured, for he would always be by her side to protect her. Xiao Ming swatted his hand away, pretending to be unfazed. Seeing this, Nan grabbed her hand firmly, gravely explaining the importance of this mission and reminding her of the contract's terms and the consequences of breaching it. Thinking about the contract's contents, Xiao Ming couldn't help but curse inwardly. Damn that indenture contract. One day, when Xiao Ming saw Malky, she was deeply captivated by its adorable appearance. She couldn't resist wrapping her arms around its neck, feeling the fluffy feathers. Nan watched her dawdling and urged her to hurry up and mount, as they were short on time. Once they were both seated, Xiao Ming sat in front of Nan with a pout, wondering what he meant by jump. Just then, Malky spread its wings, crouched down, and with a whoosh, leaped forward before Xiao Ming's astonished eyes. Xiao Ming's screams echoed through the air as fear gripped her. Nan held her tightly in his arms, telling her to hold on because they were about to accelerate. Xiao Ming clung to him nervously, asking how much longer it would take to arrive, as she was already feeling dizzy and nauseous. Soon, they reached their destination. Xiao Ming found a corner and couldn't help but throw up. She rubbed her sore bottom, groaning inwardly. Afterwards, the group proceeded on foot deep into the forest, where the path was rugged and difficult to traverse. As the sun began to set, they found a place to rest. Xiao Ming took out the ingredients she had prepared, placed them on a grill to cook, and heated up the soup from before. Everyone gathered around to enjoy dinner. That night, Xiao Ming slept sprawled out, and Nan gently covered her with a blanket. The next day, they successfully reached the entrance to the dungeon. Nan reminded Xiao Ming that ahead lay the dungeon's interior, where various monsters lurked alongside unknown dangers. Hearing this, Xiao Ming fearfully hid behind him, worried they would all be wiped out. Nan comforted her, saying they were confident about handling the middle sections. But this statement only made Xiao Ming more uneasy. Did that mean they weren't confident about the latter part? She firmly refused. If they weren't completely sure, she'd rather not go. Nan told her that with her miraculous cooking skills, they would surely be fine at least until the end. He also promised to protect her no matter what. If she really didn't want to go, that was fine too, but packs of wolves roamed the area at night. This left Xiao Ming unwilling to stay behind alone. Ultimately, she compromised, deciding to follow them. Stepping into the dungeon, a strange sound suddenly echoed in Xiao Ming's ears. Terrified, she clung tightly to Nan. It was the cry of a giant toothed flame beast. He quickly pulled Xiao Ming behind him for protection. Just then, a panicked young girl dashed past them, closely followed by a ferocious giant toothed flame boar. Nan surmised that the girl must be a novice. Turning her back to flee from a monster was the most dangerous thing to do. No sooner had the words left his mouth than the girl was nearly struck by the monster's magic. Xiao Ming hid behind Nan, anxiously urging him to save the girl quickly. This kind of monster could be dealt with in a single move. As he finished speaking, Ingyu and Chris attacked together, effortlessly felling the giant toothed flame boar with one clean strike. Xiao Ming turned into a little fangirl. She was utterly impressed by their strength, practically bowing down in admiration. After striking a cool pose, Ingyu suggested Xiao Ming prepare a pork dish. However, she wasn't skilled at slaughtering and butchering beasts. Ingyu produced a sharp dagger. "Leave this to me," she declared, guaranteeing a neat and tidy butchering job. Watching Ingyu like this, Xiao Ming couldn't help but feel a sense of danger. Nan seized the opportunity to tease. He reminded Xiao Ming that he'd warned her before about Ingyu being a bit strange sometimes. Hearing this, Ingyu sent Nan flying with a single punch. Chris, meanwhile, urged Nan to get up quickly and help. Someone over there was injured and needed healing. Xiao Ming, after considerable effort, finally finished processing the boar meat, so tired she nearly collapsed. Once she recovered, she fried meat patties until they were golden brown on both sides. She also cut the meat into large chunks and skewered them with vegetables. With the delicacies ready, she held up a skewer, calling everyone over to enjoy the meal. The aroma wafted over to Nan, even interfering with his spellcasting, but he resisted the temptation. He decided to finish healing the injured first before indulging. Soon, Nan had healed the wounded. The rescued girl was overcome with gratitude, thanking them profusely for their help. Seeing her sorrowful expression, Xiao Ming felt sympathy. She generously shared her food. After tasting it, the girl too was deeply impressed by Xiao Ming's culinary skills. Once the rescued man regained consciousness, the pair decided to leave. Before they departed, Nan inquired about some information, wanting to know why a mid-level monster like that had suddenly appeared on the upper levels. The girl replied that this was the first time they had encountered such a situation as well. Xiao noticed Nan's expression turn grave and couldn't help but worry. Was something significant about to happen? Xiao felt uneasy. What exactly happened? Nan explained that a high-level monster must have invaded this dungeon. When monsters are threatened by higher-ranking ones, they might be forced to migrate, thus disrupting the ecological balance here. The thought of monsters potentially roaming everywhere made her worry about encountering powerful enemies. Nan sensed her fear. He quickly reassured her. Even if they needed to retreat, they should first figure out what the newly appeared monster was. Xiao saw the determined glint in Nan's eyes and knew that, regardless, they had to investigate. She prayed silently in her heart, hoping they wouldn't encounter danger. As the sun gradually set, Xiao brought out the meat stewed at noon, deciding to make it the main course for dinner. But she realized their recent meals had been rather meat-heavy, possibly lacking vitamins. So, she changed the evening meal. It became a nutritionally balanced stewed bone and rice meal. Nan looked at the dinner, noticing slightly more vegetables than usual, and seemed somewhat dissatisfied. Xiao explained, eating only meat leads to nutritional imbalance, and she began listing the various benefits of vegetables. They hadn't expected the meat of the giant-toothed flame boar to be so incredibly delicious. Xiao also recommended the marrow within the large bones to everyone. That too was a rare delicacy. After Yu tried sucking out the marrow, she immediately fell in love with the taste, completely disregarding whether her eating manners were elegant. Xiao thought to herself how nice it would be if they had straws here. However, she didn't know that the aroma of the delicious food she made traveled far. A young man, drawn by the scent, stopped in his tracks. Following the fragrance, he found their campsite. Just as Xiao was sharing the food, she suddenly saw Nan drop his chopsticks and urgently gesture for her to come over. She was completely bewildered. Nan prompted her to look behind her. When she turned around in confusion, she was instantly stunned. A young man, radiating an aura of overwhelming power, was hovering in midair, looking like an incredibly powerful monster. The figure watched them warily, clearly believing they had trespassed into his territory. In her terror, Xiao abruptly threw the plate in her hands, only for it to be caught steadily by the figure behind her. The figure took a bite and showered it with praise. It turned out this being was actually a dragonoid. Seeing Nan's tense expression, it was evident this dragonoid possessed considerable strength. After finishing the food, the dragonoid still felt it wasn't enough and ordered Xiao to prepare more. Xiao seemed to make some sort of decision and quietly moved closer to Nan. Her plan was to lure the dragonoid towards the large pot to enjoy the food, then find a chance to slip away. She pointed to the large pot nearby, telling the dragonoid there was plenty of food there. The dragonoid turned to look. Sure enough, he found a bounty of delicious food inside and began to feast heartily. Nan swiftly scooped up Xiao who was unable to use teleportation magic, instructing her to hold onto him tightly. At the same time, he urged Yu and Chris to activate the teleportation spell at once. Xiao and Nan were transported together to an unfamiliar place, temporarily separated from Yu and Chris. They now found themselves somewhere near the entrance to the dungeon. Due to the dragonoid's unique constitution, gauging his true strength was difficult. They needed to regroup with Yu and the others as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, the dragonoid was eating with great relish, unknowingly stuffing himself until he was full to bursting. These dishes certainly had some skill behind them, managing to sate even him. Suddenly, he noticed everyone around him had vanished. The legendary dragonoids were an alien race, possessing astonishing combat power upon reaching adulthood. Every nation was eager to eliminate them. Several days later, Xiao was comfortably enjoying a meal at home. Because the dragonoid had appeared near the dungeon, Nan and the others were holding an emergency meeting in the Imperial City. Consequently, Xiao had received a rare short break, leaving her feeling particularly cheerful. Abruptly, a voice sounded beside her ear, asking her to share some food. Xiao turned her head and saw, to To her surprise, a cute, talking doll. The doll pitifully claimed it was hungry, pleading for just a little bit. Faced with those big, watery eyes, Xiao Ming's heart softened, and she couldn't help but agree to its request. However, looking at the completely empty plate before her later, Xiao Ming couldn't help but marvel. This appetite was practically on par with Nan's. The cute doll, completely satisfied, proposed forming a subordinate demon contract to show its gratitude. Xiao Ming misheard Song Ma, subordinate demon, as Chong Ma, pet demon. The doll continued to coax her. It explained that forming the contract would allow it to stay by her side forever. Xiao Ming couldn't resist its pleading and agreed to the contract. The doll explained the contract procedures, and Xiao Ming obediently followed them. But after waiting a long while, nothing seemed to happen. Just as the ritual was about to commence, Xiao Ming sensed something was amiss. The speaker's voice had suddenly changed. She opened her eyes and was astonished to find the dragonoid from the dungeon standing before her. He seized her hand. Xiao Ming tried to pull free, but stumbled and fell to the ground. The dragonoid fell with her, pulling off her ribbon and informing her it might hurt a little. He told her to bear with it. Xiao Ming was completely stunned. What on earth was happening? The dragonoid landed on the ground, wiping a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth, praising her, as expected of my attendant. At the same time, Nan rushed over to help Xiao Ming up. Midway through the meeting, he had sensed an abnormal fluctuation in the barrier around their home and had immediately rushed back. He asked with concern if Xiao Ming was injured, but she remained silent. Nan gently wiped away her tears, comforting her, telling her not to be afraid, that he would protect her. He pulled Xiao Ming into a tight embrace, resolving to vent her anger by dealing with the bastard before them. The dragonoid watched this scene, extremely displeased. He warned Nen not to touch his attendant. Nen moved Xiao Ming to a safe place. Then, he charged forward, landing a punch squarely on the dragonoid's face. The other retaliated without showing any weakness, returning the blow. The two were about to engage in a magical duel when Xiao Ming angrily reprimanded them. She admitted it was all her fault. She hadn't paid enough attention and had thus agreed to form the contract with the dragonoid. Hearing this, the two paused their actions. They turned towards Xiao Ming. It turned out the dragonoid's contract was rather unique, requiring a mark to be left on the other party's body, a detail that hadn't been mentioned beforehand. Despite this, the ritual was already complete. The dragonoid declared that Xiao Ming was now his attendant. This was an indisputable fact. The statement was clearly directed at Nan. Angrily, Nan pulled Xiao Ming back towards him. He claimed he had already formed a lifelong contract with her long ago. Therefore, Xiao Ming should belong to him. The two began a fierce argument regarding Xiao Ming's ownership. Xiao Ming listened to their conversation, finding it increasingly absurd. She tried to interrupt them, but they paid her no heed, continuing their argument relentlessly. Xiao Ming tried to stop them multiple times, but they completely ignored her, treating her words as if they were wind passing by their ears. Furious, she clenched her fists tightly. What do they take her for? Xiao Ming darted forward and, without ceremony, delivered a punch to each of them. After a short while, the three sat in the living room. Nan was provoking the dragonoid. Xiao Ming slammed her cup down hard on the table, sharply telling him to shut up. She turned to the dragonoid, questioning him. What exactly was this so-called pet demon contract? And why had he suddenly become incredibly strong earlier? The dragonoid explained that she should address him as Lord Ziyuan. The Thong, meaning to follow or subordinate, in Soma, subordinate demon, was not the Chong, meaning pet, in Chongma, pet demon. It finally dawned on Xiao Ming. No wonder his tone had been so cloyingly sweet before. He had deliberately misled her. Zian meticulously examined the changes in Xiao Ming's body, finding them quite intriguing. Upon the contract's formation, Xiao Ming had acquired a portion of power and magical energy from Zian. Hearing this news, his heart leaped with joy, imagining that if anyone dared to bully him in the future, he could surely send them flying with a single punch. Lan mocked Zian for being rather generous, yet she showed no anger. Both were keenly aware of Xiao Ming's value. Lan asked if she wasn't worried Xiao Ming might join forces with him against her. She gave a cold laugh. Her life and Xiao Ming's were already linked to a certain extent. If misfortune befell her, though Zian didn't finish her sentence, the implication was starkly clear. Zian had guessed Lan's identity, someone from the Faulakina family. He clenched his fists, asking fearlessly, "So what if I am?" Zian was thoroughly familiar with their family's affairs and New Land's purpose for heading to the dungeon. But with his current strength, going there was tantamount to seeking death. Thus, she proposed a trade, one where both parties could get what they needed. Lan questioned why he should trust her. Xian confidently declared, "A dragonkin always keeps their word, unlike certain races who constantly go back on theirs." Lan eventually agreed, but stipulated one condition. As soon as Xian found what she sought, the contract with Xia Meng must be immediately dissolved. She consented to this condition as well. In the bathroom, Xia Meng stared at the mark that had appeared on his neck, recalling Xian's words. His mind filled with confusion and disbelief. How would things turn out like this? No matter how hard he scrubbed, it wouldn't wash off, driving him to the brink of madness. Lying in bed, Xia Meng tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying everything that had happened since the car accident. He wanted to go home. The next morning, Xia Meng was still lost in slumber. He rolled over, his hand inadvertently brushing against something. He groggily opened his eyes. The moment he saw Xian lying in his bed, he jolted awake. What was this person doing in his room? Lin Yu and Chris came by to visit. Xia Meng let them in, just as Xian emerged looking for food. Lin Yu greeted her, but then realization dawned. He instinctively unleashed a magical attack, demanding, "Why is a dragonkin here?" He urged Xia Meng to hide behind them. Xian explained, "I am Xia Meng's new master. You may call me Xian." Lin Yu and Chris stared in disbelief. Lin Yu turned to Xia Meng, seeking confirmation. He sighed, saying it was a long story. After hearing his tale, Lin Yu couldn't help but exclaim, "Incredible! Your cooking actually managed to attract such a formidable character." Xia Meng buried his face in his hands, muttering that this wasn't the kind of glory he needed. Xia Meng introduced everyone. Lin Yu was thrilled. Partnering with a rare dragonkin, this was definitely something to brag about. Chris, however, remembered the purpose of their visit and handed Xia Meng the whisk he needed. It was the first time Chris had crafted something with this structure, and he was curious about its use. Xia Meng explained it was for mixing, allowing him to create more interesting and delicious desserts. Lin Yu's interest was piqued, and he eagerly offered to help. Xia Meng thought for a moment and suggested making cream puffs for afternoon tea. Lin Yu had never heard of such a dessert. Xia Meng described it as something utterly irresistible. He began gathering the ingredients. While working, Lin Yu curiously asked Xian why she chose him. Xia Meng didn't quite know how to explain either, but mentioned it was similar to Lan's situation, and the two had nearly come to blows over it. Lin Yu's gossip senses tingled, and he pressed Xia Meng about his feelings. Xia Meng feigned ignorance, but Lin Yu told him to stop pretending. Two men fighting over him. Didn't he feel anything? Xia Meng confessed he was practically dying of frustration. When Lin Yu asked who he would choose as his master, Xia Meng recalled his earlier attempt to test Xian. He had produced a gold coin, asking Xian, "How about this?" She looked utterly baffled. "How about what?" Xia Meng, remembering novels and movies where dragons loved gold and shiny things, tried to tempt her with the gold. If she released the contract, all the gold coins he had were hers. Yet, Xian remained unmoved. Xia Meng persisted, emphasizing, "It's pure gold, you know. Definitely not chocolate." Xian put her hands on her hips, retorting, "Who told you dragonkin like gold coins? This continent has no shortage of gold mines." Just as Xia Meng was pondering how else he might persuade her to dissolve the contract, Xian suddenly slammed her hand against the wall beside him, trapping him. "You have no idea how lucky you are," she stated. "Countless people yearn for the power that comes with becoming a dragonkin's follower. You should be thrilled." Xia Meng helplessly replied that he'd gladly give the spot away. But Xian told him that in the perilous dungeon, having another master means another layer of protection. Xia Meng felt Ziyuan spoke the truth. The unknown dungeon was simply too terrifying. Ziyuan gently stroked her head, urging her not to dwell on it so much. Things would be just as they were before. Being his attendant wasn't a bad deal. Resigned to this thought, Xia Meng could only helplessly inform Ingyu, "I suppose both of them are my masters now." Ingyu sensed an interesting drama unfolding. Xia Meng pressed Ziyuan about his connection with Chris. He explained they were merely friends, but Xia Meng clearly doubted it was that simple. While they conversed, the cream puff pastries finished baking. Soon, the sweet creations were ready. Ingyu found the cream puffs utterly adorable and couldn't help but take one. She lavished praise upon it. "This flavor is truly wonderful." She devoured the entire pastry in one go. Xia Meng seized the opportunity to tease her. Some things require a bold attempt before you truly know, she quipped. Ingyu shot back, telling her to sort out the complicated relationship between the three of them first. Xia Meng meekly replied, "It's just a master-servant relationship. What's there to sort out?" Ingyu leaned in closer. "Is it really that simple?" she teased. Chris raised his teacup. He had come this time to inform them of the council's decision. For safety reasons, His Majesty had decided to temporarily seal the dungeon. This decision stemmed primarily from the agreement signed with the Dragonoids, as well as the subordinate demon relationship between Xia Meng and Ziyuan. This matter required registration with the guild. Xia Meng, arranging desserts nearby, muttered dejectedly that she hadn't wanted this either. Ziyuan picked up a dessert. "Since the decision has been made, it cannot be changed." Chris inquired whether Xia Meng and Ziyuan intended to serve the kingdom. Ziyuan indicated that he himself had no authority in this. The decision lay entirely in their hands. Catching the look Nin directed at him, Chris understood his implication. He stated he would do his utmost to persuade his father, the king, ensuring they faced no impediments due to their association with the Dragonoids. Following this, Chris sampled the dessert he held and was instantly enchanted. This confection is truly exquisite. This particular dessert was known as an éclair, perfect for an afternoon tea treat. Its appearance was both elegant and charming. After finishing his, Nan discovered it granted a boost in attack speed for 30 minutes. He requested Xia Meng make more. They then resumed their discussion regarding the dungeon. Nan resolved to venture forth again. This time, only Xia Meng, Ingyu, and he would make the journey. Xia Meng couldn't fathom why she was needed. She possessed no combat skills. Nearby, Ing, hearing his own name omitted, let out a dissatisfied grunt. He declared that since Xia Meng was going, he would naturally accompany her, his tone firm and unyielding. However, both Ingyu and Chris were officers in the kingdom's military legions and required time to return and coordinate matters, inevitably causing a delay of 1 or 2 days. Chris proposed that the three of them, Nan, Xia Meng, and Ziyuan, depart first. Ingyu concurred, agreeing it was the most sensible plan. Ziyuan revealed he knew of a shortcut, one that could bypass numerous unnecessary conflicts. It was a path he had chanced upon during a previous excursion into the dungeon. Nevertheless, Xia Meng remained somewhat apprehensive. Ziyuan gently caressed her cheek, offering reassurance, vowing to rescue her instantly should danger arise. Nan, standing close by, curtly told Ziyuan to remove his hand. He then drew Xia Meng into his own embrace, asserting that his protection alone was more than sufficient. The two rivals began to quarrel once more. Xia Meng attempted to mediate, suggesting it was best if they all went together. Without her acting as a hindrance, they could advance with greater ease. Hearing Nin invoke the contract as a means of coercion, Xia Meng's expression turned indignant. Sensing her displeasure, Nin informed her that, starting today, her wages for any excursions would be doubled. This unexpected news filled Xia Meng with delight. She immediately pledged her obedience to her master's every command, then cast a challenging look towards Ziyuan. Xia Meng observed his gesture. As for their ongoing dispute, she declared she hadn't the time to entertain those two fools. She then turned, inviting Ingyu and the others to join them for a meal. Nan conjured a sphere of flame. In the distance, a fierce explosion erupted instantaneously. Ziyuan summoned forth a small demonic creature. He prompted Xia Meng to dispatch it. Weapon in hand, Xia Meng hesitated. Her adventuring gear seemed appropriate enough, but her weapon was merely a frying pan. Gazing down at the diminutive, seemingly weak demonic beast, she simply couldn't bring herself to strike it down. Nin warned her that should these creatures attack en masse, they could inflict grievous wounds in mere moments. Xia Meng hadn't realized the tiny thing could be so fearsome. Ziyuan commanded her to eliminate it at once. Engaging in close-quarters combat was something Xia Meng felt utterly incapable of, regardless of the circumstances. Consequently, Nin enveloped her in a protective magical barrier. This shield, he explained, could effortlessly repel even high-level monsters. Ziyuan gave her a gentle push forward. The dungeon, he stated, is a realm where survival demands combat. Xia Meng cursed them both under her breath, calling them devils. Then, hoisting the frying pan, she advanced towards the demonic beast. Offering a quick apology, she brought the pan down with forceful determination. Xia Meng resolved to utilize the bird monster thigh she had acquired around noon. To prepare dinner, she first washed the thigh and marinated it for 20 minutes. Then, she coated it with egg white and starch. Finally, she deep-fried it until golden brown. Just as dinner was ready, they returned. During the meal, the two urged her to quickly get used to activating her skills, as they would encounter even stronger humanoid monsters later. The next day, the three arrived at a dungeon composed of 3 areas: an aerial dense forest, a pool, and a town. Their destination was the town area. Xiao Ming didn't understand why they had come to this cliff. Ziyuan explained that it offered direct access to the pool area. He planned to fly down with Xiao Ming, letting Nin jump down using magic illumination. Nin questioned why, if Ziyuan could fly down, he didn't just carry both of them. Ziyuan arrogantly stated he wouldn't touch another man's body. Watching the two bicker endlessly, Xiao Ming calmly analyzed the situation. Ultimately, Ziyuan compromised. Due to the dragon form being too small, this was the only way he could carry them down. During the flight, the two started arguing again. Xiao Ming quickly intervened, reminding them they were about to arrive. Just as Ziyuan was making threats, he was suddenly hit by a rock. His grip on the two involuntarily loosened. They struggled in the water, finally managing to float. Nan angrily accused Ziyuan. Seeing they were about to argue again, Xiao Ming quickly reminded them to find a place to change clothes to avoid getting sick. While the two were changing, Nen noticed Ziyuan's gaze and asked puzzledly why he kept staring at him. Ziyuan asked if he liked Xiao Ming. Nan remained silent for a moment, then retorted, asking what business it was of his. He then stated it was normal for a master to care about his subordinate. He saw the brand on Nan's chest. Could the rumors about their family be true? Nan covered the brand on his chest. This mark served only as a constant reminder. Suddenly, they heard Xiao Ming's cry for help. A monster had appeared near her. A water-based creature tightly bound Xiao Ming. Her body was constricted, unable to move, leaving her only able to cry for help. Nan cast Floating Tree to observe the situation. With Xiao Ming captured, the situation was tricky. He reminded Ziyuan to be extremely careful when attacking. After the monster was attacked, Xiao Ming felt the constriction tighten. Nan dived underwater and cast Rock-Breaking Tree. With a loud roar, the monster slammed heavily onto the water's surface, then became still. The two were puzzled by the unexpectedly easy success, feeling something was amiss. Unexpectedly, the monster suddenly opened its eyes and launched a fierce attack. Fortunately, the two were alert. Indeed, the creature had been feigning death to lure them in. Xiao Ming didn't understand what her companions were doing. Her body was squeezed tighter and tighter by the tentacles. She thought if she were strangled to death by an octopus back on Earth, it would definitely make headlines. Then, she cried out that she couldn't hold on much longer. As soon as the words left her mouth, Ziyuan unleashed a wind blade, nearly severing the tentacle. Sensing the threat, the monster extended a tentacle to attack Ziyuan, but he was already prepared, swiftly retreating with a flick of his wrist. Trying to touch me? You're 10,000 years too early. Xiao Ming seemed to have thought of a plan. She asked Nan to immobilize the monster first. Then, Ziyuan should use a similar magic attack as before, aiming for the spot between its eyes. When they asked if her method would work, she admitted she wasn't sure. She had dealt with octopuses before and knew how to kill them, but she knew nothing about this monster. The monster continued its fierce assault. Lacking a better plan for the moment, the two decided to try her suggestion. Nan handed Ziyuan an eclair to boost his speed. Then, Nan cast Storm Ice Field, freezing the monster. The rest was up to Ziyuan. With the eclair in his mouth, Ziyuan's speed increased dramatically. He quickly aimed at the target spot and unleashed Thunder Spear. As the Thunder Spear struck with an unusual roar, the monster collapsed. The two hadn't expected victory to come so easily. Immediately, they started looking for Xiao Ming. She extended a hand from the pile of tentacles, shouting, "I'm here." Nan rushed over, confirmed she was unharmed, and pulled her out. However, the areas where she had been constricted still throbbed with pain. When her feet touched the icy ground, she instantly leaped up, clinging tightly onto Nan. The scene left Ziyuan dumbfounded, while Nan wore an indulgent smile. He decided to heal her immediately. After the treatment, Nan told her to hold on to him tightly and quickly headed for the shore. Ziyuan couldn't stand watching and offered to carry her instead. However, Nan, in high spirits, ignored him. Finally, Nan successfully carried her to the shore. Once ashore, she curiously asked how he had discovered the monster's weak spot. He explained that an octopus's brain is located between its eyes. Previously, defeating octopus monsters required organizing a team of 20 for a battle of attrition. Hearing this, she couldn't help but complain. If they had waited for everyone to arrive, she feared she would have long since lost her life. Ziyuan remarked that managing to defeat the giant octopus with just the two of them felt like a miracle. Xiaoming countered that this precisely demonstrated the power of teamwork. Teamwork, she explained, meant members complementing each other, growing together, and thus becoming stronger. The two men pondered this for a moment, deciding to cooperate further, but strictly limited to combat situations. Xiaoming interrupted their brewing argument. She suggested they first find a place to change out of their soaked clothes. Concerned for her safety and privacy, Nan proposed setting up a curtain again for her to change behind. He glanced towards Ziyuan, looking somewhat uncertain, then seemed to perceive his hesitation and promised he would help keep an eye on the others for him. Ziyuan, witnessing this, bristled with indignation. He insisted vehemently that he would absolutely not peek. Exasperated, Xiaoming asked him to fetch some tentacles from the giant octopus to serve as the main course for their lunch. Once the octopus tentacles were brought back, she first rubbed them with salt to remove the slime. Then, she tenderized the meat with a stick before boiling it in hot water. Afterward, she marinated it with various spices for half an hour. Finally, she placed the marinated octopus onto a grill, roasting it slowly. The octopus meat was springy and delicious, truly worthy of a rare monster. After tasting it, Nan found his ice magic had actually doubled in strength. He began to anticipate what trying other rare magical creatures might yield. Gazing upon the vast, empty town, Xiaoming turned to her companions, seeking confirmation, finding it hard to believe. She scanned her surroundings, utterly deserted. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching from the shadows. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through, making her shiver involuntarily as she felt an icy presence. Xiaoming's thoughts began to spiral. Terrifying images flooded her mind, as if some dreadful entity was about to manifest. Just then, she glimpsed a white figure appearing ahead. Nervously, she tugged at Nan's sleeve, telling him she thought she saw a person. Nan reassured her it was likely just a dark spirit, not uncommon in town areas like this. This only heightened Xiaoming's fear. She desperately wanted to flee the place, and told her they could be dispelled simply by using holy magic. Just as she wondered who could cast such magic, she felt something strange coiling around her. Seeing this, Nan immediately unleashed the light of the Holy Spirit upon her. Rest in peace. The dark spirit behind her instantly dissipated. At that moment, Ziyuan's voice came from the side. Shouldn't you cast some magic for me too? They turned their heads. They found Ziyuan completely surrounded by dark spirits. Nan quipped that with Ziyuan's abilities, he hardly needed any magical assistance. Xiaoming urged everyone to leave this place quickly. Nan lifted her chin, telling her not to look at the frightening things. If she really couldn't control it, she should just look at him instead. Xiaoming's face flushed crimson. She hadn't expected Nan to say something like that. Just then, Ziyuan suddenly reached out, shattering the delicate atmosphere between the two. He warned Nan to stay away from his attendant and questioned Nan's ill intentions. Nan retorted that he was merely looking after her. Unlike Ziyuan, whose heart harbored improper thoughts, Xiaoming pressed her hands against her burning cheeks, realizing she didn't actually dislike Nan's behavior. Her heart was even pounding much faster. After the three reached their destination, Ziyuan tried to push open the large gate before them, but despite studying it for a long time, he couldn't open it. This door could only be opened by someone possessing the Floricina bloodline. Exhausted from their long journey, they decided to rest nearby. Xiaoming eyed the fish Ziyuan took out, asking where it came from. Upon learning it was found inside the giant octopus's ink sac, she looked disgusted and told him to throw it away immediately. The next morning, Xiaoming carefully prepared a sumptuous breakfast. These foods not only enhanced magical attack power, but also increased recovery speed. Nan instructed her to stay close to the gate during the Guardian's battle, then handed her a teleportation stone. If things felt wrong, she could escape using the teleportation stone. Xiao Ming looked at them with worry. Ziyuan reassured her that if they truly couldn't win, they would find a way to escape. The three arrived once more before the imposing gate, then placed his hand on the door. It began to glow, then slowly swung open. Upon entering, they found themselves in a water domain. Nan immediately cast a levitation spell. He instructed Xiao Ming to remain there while he and Ziyuan scouted ahead. During their reconnaissance, Nan sensed something amiss. He warned Ziyuan to watch his step. The guardian was about to appear. No sooner had the words left his mouth than ripples disturbed the water surface. A colossal serpent emerged. It was the guardian. The guardian attacked first, spewing a torrent of fire towards the two men. An explosion roared, obscuring their vision with smoke. Xiao Ming cried out their names in alarm. As the smoke cleared, Nan's figure reappeared. He launched fireballs at the guardian. Struck, the guardian swiftly submerged back into the water. Suddenly materializing beside Ziyuan, he launched an attack. Nan swiftly pulled him back, escaping the immediate danger zone. Ziyuan excelled in lightning and wind magic, but unleashing lightning risked engulfing everyone. Hearing mention of wind magic, Nan conceived a counter-strategy. On the other side, Xiao Ming watched with an anxious gaze as the two fell into peril, desperately scanning the surroundings for anything useful. Abruptly, his eyes landed on a stone brick. Without hesitation, he snatched it up, channeling his attack magic. He hurled the stone brick towards the guardian. Struck, the guardian reeled back, momentarily exposing its abdomen. Xiao Ming shouted for the others to target its belly. Ziyuan reacted instantly, conjuring wind shackles to bind the guardian, urging Nan to strike quickly. Finally, they succeeded in defeating the guardian. The trio proceeded to the core area. Nan smoothly retrieved the water essence, one of the essential materials required to complete the demon god seal. Xiao Ming asked, puzzled, "Didn't the book say it was already sealed?" Nan explained that the seal was incomplete and would gradually weaken over the years, necessitating the collection of materials to reinforce it. Hearing this, Xiao Ming felt a wave of reluctance, realizing there were still other dungeons to conquer. Next, they would journey to the dungeon in the kingdom of Morelia, located near a famous resort destination. The group arrived at the bustling tourist city, witnessing the long queue of people waiting to enter the city ahead. Even Chris, the first prince of Hileria, note, text switches between Hileria/Marelian kingdom names, had to wait in line with the common folk. Ziyuan expressed dissatisfaction, muttering, "Wouldn't scaling the wall be faster?" Chris reminded him that such an action would lead to arrest. To avoid trouble, Xiao Ming persuaded him to wait patiently. At that moment, the surrounding citizens noticed Ziyuan, the dragonoid. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. As the one contracted to the dragonoid, Xiao Ming suddenly found himself the focus of attention, making him feel rather uncomfortable under the scrutiny. Just then, a knight approached. He introduced himself as Dylan Etika, captain of the 7th Knight Order of the Marelian Kingdom. The Lord had invited Nan and Ziyuan to his residence as guests. Dylan led them through a special passage into the city. Listening to the noisy chatter behind him, Xiao Ming inwardly wished they could just get inside faster. Each of them received an entry permit crystal, which had to be returned upon departure. Once inside the city, the group began discussing their next steps. Nan and Ziyuan decided to head to the Lord's residence. Meanwhile, Chris needed to go to the military department. He asked Inu whether she would accompany him or stay with Xiao Ming. Under Chris's hopeful gaze, Inu unhesitatingly chose the latter. Consequently, Chris handed her a letter of introduction, instructing them to check into an inn first. Xiao Ming asked worriedly if it was all right for Inu not to go. But Inu explained she was merely accompanying them this time, and her presence wasn't required. With that said, she pulled Xiao Ming along, hurrying towards the inn, eager for the journey ahead. After finding an inn, the two rented a detached house. Once settled, they ventured out to the marketplace. The variety of ingredients here surpassed even that of Ixiram. There were even items they hadn't been able to procure before. Xiao Ming excitedly embarked on a shopping spree. After browsing for a long while, both felt thirsty. Inu pointed towards a stall ahead, telling him to wait there once more while she went to buy drinks. After Inu departed, Xiao Ming sat down contentedly. A sense of deep satisfaction filled him, having acquired so many high-quality ingredients today. However, Just as he was reveling in his quiet joy, someone approached him from behind, striking up a conversation and inviting him to play. Observing the man's attire, Xiao Meng guessed they were guards. Maintaining a neutral expression, he firmly refused the advance. From the jeering calls of the man's followers, he learned the name of the man holding his hand was Alinda. After a moment's thought, he confirmed he had no recollection of this person. Seeing Alinda's refusal to give up, still gripping his hand, Xiao Meng felt a rising sense of disgust. Just as Xiao Meng found himself locked in this uncomfortable standoff, then arrived like a storm. He seized Alinda's hand with crushing force, his voice dangerously low. "What do you think you're doing to my person?" He then turned to Xiao Meng, his tone softening with concern. "Are you all right?" Xiao Meng shook his head, murmuring that his hand was just a little red. Alinda, seething with ignored rage, snarled at Nan, calling him an uncouth brute and demanding he release his hand. However, the next second, agonizing pain shot through his wrist, leaving him utterly shocked. Hearing his cry, Alinda's followers surged forward, pointing accusingly at Nan. "How dare you lay hands on the Lord's eldest son?" Nan paid the insolent accusations no mind, but upon noticing Xiao Meng's worried expression, he let out a cold scoff and released Alinda's hand. It was clear Alinda had also recognized Nan's formidable presence, rubbing his stinging wrist with a mixture of pain and apprehension, while issuing harsh threats, telling Nan to watch his words. Hearing Nan's identity, the followers nearby began to mock him as a useless descendant of heroes, living off the state's coffers. Listening to their taunts, Xiao Meng couldn't help but find their words exceptionally grating. Alinda not only failed to stop them, but continued to add fuel to the fire with cutting remarks, even stating how pitiful it was that Nan was the sole remaining member of his family, then clenched his fists in anger, while Xiao Meng was taken aback by these words. Ziyuan suddenly spoke up, interrupting them. Seeing that Ziyuan was a dragonkin, the group remembered their instructions from above, do not offend the dragonkin. Thus, Alinda reluctantly led his people away. Inyu returned with the drinks, sensing the tense atmosphere and asking what had happened. Nan, unwilling to elaborate, merely explained they had encountered some tiresome people. Ziyuan, hearing the surrounding murmurs, declared she was hungry and suggested they leave. After returning to the inn, Xiao Meng prepared sashimi for them. Seeing Inyu about to dig in, Xiao Meng asked him to wait a moment, saying one thing was still missing. Then, she brought out the wasabi. Inyu didn't understand its connection to dinner. Xiao Meng explained that grinding the wasabi into a paste and eating it with the sashimi enhances the flavor. Ziyuan eagerly picked up a piece of sashimi, wanting to taste it immediately. Xiao Meng quickly stopped her, because she had put far too much wasabi on it. However, Yun didn't listen, stuffing the entire piece, laden with wasabi, into her mouth. After just one chew, the intense spice hit her instantly. The next second, flames shot out her mouth. Xiao Meng sighed. The usual way is to drizzle sauce over the sashimi, then dip it in a tiny bit of wasabi before eating. You shouldn't eat so much wasabi at once. When eating, inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. The nose-tingling spiciness will be much less intense. Inyu tried a piece following Xiao Meng's method. A sweetness mingled with the spiciness. The taste was fantastic. While the others marveled at the delicious food, only Nan ate quietly. Xiao Meng quietly asked Ziyuan, "What's wrong with Nan?" Ziyuan guessed Nan might be troubled by the encounter with the Lord earlier that day. The hypocrisy and unpleasantness of those people had disgusted him. Based on Ziyuan's words and the comments from the group on the street, Xiao Meng felt that Nan's background seemed quite complicated. She unconsciously took a sip of the drink in her hand. Instantly, she was amazed by the taste. It was even more delicious than the fruit vendor had described. She poured a glass for Nan. It was indeed very good, sweet, and refreshing. Suddenly, she was shocked to find this in the juice, then glanced at the fruit in the cup, surprised to see it here. He began questioning Xiao Meng about the source of these fruits and how many she had used to make the juice earlier. Xiao Meng thought for a moment and replied, "About 5. Just then, she suddenly felt a wave of heat wash over her. Nevertheless, she can't. Inut explaining, "I met a very strange vendor today and bought them there. The vendor told me they found these fruits by chance during their travels and heard that drinks made with them are exceptionally tasty." so I bought 10. Just as Xiao Meng received the fruits, patrol guards rushed over angrily. Seeing trouble, the vendor grabbed their things and fled. She hadn't even had time to pay. She had appraised the fruit. The result showed it was non-toxic and edible, smelling much like passion fruit. Nan explained that this type of fruit has an extremely high alcohol content. 2 are equivalent to a whole barrel of wine. Xiao Meng clutched her forehead in realization. No wonder she had started feeling dizzy earlier. Immediately after, her body began to sway. Just as she was about to fall, Nan quickly caught her. He looked down. The girl in his arms had already drifted off to sleep. He turned to warn the others to drink less and asked Inu to take Xiao Meng back. However, his warning came too late. Ziyuan had already grabbed the container of juice and was gulping it down, even revealing her dragon form. Inu and Chris had also drunk quite a bit, but Inu's tolerance wasn't as high as Chris's. He was already drunk. Surveying the chaotic scene before him, Nan sighed, deciding to take Xiao Meng back himself. He carried Xiao Meng back to her room. Just as they neared the bed, he suddenly felt a wave of discomfort, his footing unsteady. He accidentally dropped Xiao Meng onto the bed. Hearing her soft sigh, he felt as if spellbound, his heart pounding wildly. He couldn't stop himself from lifting a strand of Xiao Meng's hair, inhaling its scent while whispering her name. He caressed her cheek. Overcome by emotion, he leaned down, wanting to kiss her. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his heart. He immediately recoiled, sitting up, wondering if the alcohol had clouded his mind. Then tucked her in, murmured good night, and then walked out of the room. Night fell, pierced by lightning and echoing with thunder. A young Nan, consumed by terror, ran as fast as his legs could carry him. He stumbled upon a scene of carnage, bodies littering the ground. Confusion and disbelief flooded his young heart. He couldn't comprehend why everyone was dead. He kept running, driven by the singular need to find his father and mother. When he reached a tightly shut door, he heard their voices from within. He pushed the door open. For a fleeting moment, he thought he had finally found them. But the next second shattered his hope, revealing the horrific sight of his father, sword raised, plunging it into his mother. Blood sprayed from her like an arrow. His father then noticed him. His mother, collapsing, looked at him with incredulity, unable to fathom why he was there. Seeing her husband, lost to madness, about to turn on their child, the mother desperately pulled Nan into a tight embrace, frantically urging him to run. Nan refused, unwilling to abandon her. But just then, Butler Beria materialized behind him. Grabbing Nan's hand, he swiftly pulled him away from the unfolding tragedy. The butler led Nan towards a doorway. "Pass through this door, and you'll be safe," the butler told him, urging him to hurry inside. As Nan stepped across the threshold, "This is as far as I can accompany you," the butler stated. No sooner had the words left his lips than he slammed the heavy door shut, his final words echoing, "Remember, you are the last hope of this family." No matter how desperately Nan cried out, pounding on the unyielding wood, the door remained shut. Only a pool of crimson blood seeped out from the gap beneath it. In Nan's moment of utter heartbreak, a girl appeared beside him, her presence a sudden warmth that illuminated his desolate world. This girl was Xiao Meng. Yet, just as Nan, filled with nascent hope, turned to welcome her, a sharp sword pierced clean through his body. Watching the girl, once so vibrant and lovely, collapse before him, Nan's world fractured all over again. A demonized, Nan caught the falling Xiao Meng. No matter how he fought against it, he could not escape the cruel machinations of fate. Lost in the nightmare, Nan's eyes snapped open, jolting him awake. He sat up abruptly, his gaze darting around the room. Outside the window, the cheerful chirping of birdsong drifted in. He pressed his forehead, groaning in pain, a curse escaping his lips. Damn it! Remembering that everyone had been drinking the previous night, Xiao Meng decided to prepare something easy to digest for breakfast. She had just finished setting the table. Nan emerged from his room. "I made creamy corn juice this morning," she said, placing the food down. "The others aren't up yet." As they were talking, the rest of the group began to appear one by one. But Xiao Meng noticed Yuan was still nowhere to be seen. Nan cut their conversation short. "After breakfast and cleaning up, we head to the dungeon." Regarding Ziyuan's absence, he added dismissively, "We'll just leave him a note." 3 hours later, they stood before the entrance to the dungeon. Xiao Meng stared, bewildered. "Aren't dungeons supposed to be underground? This looks exactly like a forest," she observed. Chris explained. The water level dropped significantly, and combined with the rapid growth of vegetation, it transformed the area into what you see now. Xiaoming shuddered, recalling the octopus incident. That was an absolute nightmare, she murmured. Nan reassured her, it won't be like that here. This dungeon's practically empty due to overhunting. However, he cautioned, it's far from safe. There are still numerous traps scattered about, remnants from past hunting expeditions. They were left behind because the cost of removing them was deemed too high. Reaching a specific zone, Nan warned, everyone be careful. This area is dense with traps. Wait for my signal before you move. He then activated his magic, employing the needle eye technique to scan their surroundings. Shortly after, Nin began issuing directions, guiding their movements. Yin and Chris, at the front, navigated the path with relative ease. But Xiaoming, trailing behind them, heard an unsettling noise. I think I stepped on something wrong, she stammered. The words had barely left her mouth when Yin sensed imminent danger. A massive wooden stake swung down towards them. Yin leaped into the air, shattering the stake with a powerful kick. As she landed, she wiped a bead of cold sweat from her brow, relieved by her swift reaction. Before Xiaoming could fully apologize, another ominous sound emanated from the ground beneath them. Both women froze instantly, terrified to move, then couldn't help but grumble, you two are walking disasters. Because they had misplaced their steps, they had triggered another trap. Xiaoming felt the ground give way, her body plummeting uncontrollably into a dark tunnel. Yin reacted in a flash, grabbing hold of her. Pushing off the collapsing edge with her feet, Yin launched them upwards. With a burst of magic, she managed to halt their fall, leaving them suspended against the tunnel wall. They clung there, hearts pounding, having narrowly escaped disaster. Hold on tight, Yin instructed Xiaoming. I'm going to climb up. After a strenuous and harrowing effort, they finally hauled themselves back onto solid ground. Exhausted, Yin collapsed, sitting heavily on the earth. Xiaoming thanked her profusely, blushing with embarrassment. If you hadn't saved me just now, I would have fallen right into that trap. They scanned their surroundings. I suppose we're properly inside the dungeon now. Yin mused, wondering aloud. I wonder how Nan and Chris are doing. She offered Xiaoming a reassuring smile. Getting separated in places like this happens all the time. Try not to worry too much. Then, Yin produced a teammate sensor stone. As long as it continued to glow, it meant the others were all right. Having said this, saliva trickled from the corner of Yin's mouth. Right now, eating was still the most pressing matter. Only by replenishing enough energy could they venture further. She opened her lunchbox, unable to suppress a sigh of admiration. Elsewhere, Nan awoke to find himself confined within a cage. Beside him, Ziyuan suddenly spoke, startling him. It turned out Ziyuan was also ensnared in this trap. This should be a mad demon cage, Ziyuan explained. Inside this cage, all sorts of abilities are restricted. Magic is almost impossible to use. Nin studied it for a long while. It seemed destruction from the outside was their only hope. Next, Ziyuan began asking about Xiaoming's whereabouts. Nin told her that Xiaoming and Yin were caught in another trap. Both traps had activated simultaneously. As he spoke, he tested the cage, discovering it was completely unresponsive to physical attacks. A pity Chris isn't here, he muttered. Otherwise, he could open this in an instant. Ziyuan interrupted him, asking if he had anything to eat. Nan fell into a helpless silence for a moment. He passed his own lunchbox to her. I can only spare half. Ziyuan quickly took the box and began to devour the contents ravenously. Seeing her eat her fill, Nin reminded her it was time to work. You're still a young dragon. Change back into your dragon form. Maybe you can slip through the gaps in the bars. Ziyuan transformed back in her dragon shape, then pushed her forcefully towards the outside. But because Ziyuan had eaten so much, she couldn't be pushed through no matter how hard he tried. Nin strained, shoving her rear in to squeeze her out. Worried her handsome face would be ruined, Ziyuan petulantly refused to cooperate any longer. Not far away, Xiaoming seemed to hear Ziyuan's voice. Yin listened carefully and confirmed the sound was indeed coming from that direction. Meanwhile, Nin was still struggling to push Ziyuan. Giving up due to the pain, Ziyuan transformed back into her humanoid form. Xiaoming and Yin, drawn by the sound, arrived to witness the pair's compromising position and instantly jumped to the wrong conclusion. The scene became incredibly awkward. Yin put an arm around Xiaoming and turned to leave. Go on, continue, Yin called back. We'll come back later. Behind them, the two youths shouted after the departing figures, "It's not what you think. Come back quickly." Xiaoming gripped the cage bars. Drawing upon Ziyuan's power, she pulled with all her might, and incredibly, the iron bars of the cage bent. The two inside the cage broke out in a cold sweat. It was also Ziyuan's first time forming a contract, and she had inadvertently transferred too much power to Xiaoming. Even Yinyu, standing nearby, was astonished by her staggering arm strength. She stood with her arms crossed, sighing regretfully. "I still can't use attack magic," Nin interrupted her, asking her to prepare him some lunch. Xiaoming remembered giving Nin a lunchbox before they set out, then pointed at Ziyuan beside him. "My portion was devoured by that one." Ziyuan hadn't returned to the inn that morning. She'd woken up trapped here and had been stuck ever since. Xiaoming took out her apron, tied her hair back, and retrieved ingredients. She decided to make simple noodles. Seeing the expectant looks from Ziyuan and Yinyu, she resolved to make enough for 4. Slicing green onions and ginger, slicing lotus root leaves, she added oil to a pot. She tossed the side ingredients in, stir-frying them until fragrant, then added water to the pot. Once the water boiled, she put in the noodles, simultaneously frying eggs while they cooked. Soon, the noodles were ready. She served the bowls to everyone. "Eat them while they're hot," she reminded them. Suddenly, with a shink, something shot straight towards Xiaoming. She cried out in alarm. Everyone followed her gaze. It was a Jedigia. It had snatched Xiaoming's spatial pouch. Seeing Xiaoming's panicked expression, Nin asked what was inside. Upon learning it contained some tableware and all their food supplies, the others stared at her in shock. Realizing what had happened, they began to chase after the Jedigia, attempting to retrieve the spatial pouch. A short while later, Yinyu grabbed her hair in frustration. "Damn it, the Jedigia still got away," she complained. "How infuriating." Xiaoming comforted her. "Never mind." She then asked if they had brought any ingredients out. Learning they hadn't, she didn't say much more. "This time is much better than the last," she mused. "At least we still have cutlery and seasonings. As for ingredients, we'll just have to keep an eye out for anything edible along the way." Then she picked up the bowls of noodles again and offered them to everyone. "If we wait any longer, the noodles won't taste good," she reminded them. Yinyu explained to Xiaoming. "That was a Jedigia. It's a type of competitive wild pheasant, fond of stealing. They're particularly prone to targeting females. Its only real strength is its incredible speed. You only have a chance to catch one if you manage to anger it. Who knows if we'll ever encounter it again?" Yinyu told her it was hard to say, and the probability wasn't high. Just then, a voice called out. It was Chris, who had followed the sounds to find them. Arriving, he saw their dejected expressions. "What happened?" he asked, puzzled. Xiaoming prepared lunch using the shellfish gathered along the way. He first mixed a sauce, then grilled the oysters on a rack. With his knife, he peeled and diced a pumpkin. He chopped onions and sautéed them until translucent, setting them aside. While pouring something nearby, he began to miss the days of having a food processor. Soon, the pumpkin oyster soup and grilled oysters were ready. Looking at the spread, Ziyuan declared it wasn't nearly enough to fill her up. Xiaoming paid her no mind. The others wouldn't object to helping her eat her share. Yinyu skeptically picked up an oyster. After one bite, she was pleasantly surprised. It tasted divine. The rich garlic aroma didn't mask the oyster's freshness, but enhanced it. After lunch, they pressed onward. If the path remained clear, they would reach their destination soon. Nin placed his hand on a door, and it slowly swung open. The door's movement alerted the guardian. It swiftly looked towards the entrance. Xiaoming gazed at the giant, marveling at its size, then explained it was a giant stone golem. Seeing nothing amiss, the giant stone golem turned and walked away. Each step it took echoed with a tremendous crash, shaking the surroundings. Watching the giant stone golem retreat into the distance, Yinyu couldn't help but feel relieved. "Good thing it didn't notice us," she murmured, a worried expression crossing her face. "Such a powerful monster. Could they even defeat it?" Nan patted her shoulder reassuringly. "No problem." Beside them, Ziyuan chimed in, suggesting they could just stay back while the others handled it. Nan stared speechlessly at Ziyuan, unable to resist complaining, telling her to fight the monster properly and not slack off. Seeing Ziyuan's nonchalant attitude, Nan reminded her not to underestimate the enemy. After warning Ziyuan, he began casting magic shields on everyone, then instructed Chris to switch to his highest defense form. "Draw the giant stone golem's attention as much as possible," Chris affirmed, No problem. Then he remembered the weapon Xiao Ming had asked him to make was finished. He took it out and handed it over. It was a hammer, designed to function as both a cooking utensil and a weapon. Chris had specifically crafted it, so it could freely transform between large and small forms. It was a masterpiece he was proud of. Xiao Ming gave him a thumbs up, praising his thoughtfulness. Seeing everyone ready, Nin signaled for them to prepare to engage. As a defensive mage, Chris initiated the attack, successfully drawing the stone golem's attention. He was inwardly astonished by the golem's strength. He dared not be careless. The debris falling from a stone golem could actually reassemble itself automatically, a shocking sight. Just as the fragments were about to merge, Nin decisively unleashed a blazing fireball, striking the reassembling rubble. Instantly, the fragments scattered, revealing a red gemstone emitting an eerie crimson glow. Immediately after, the fragments began to spin, circling around their bodies and automatically returning to the stone golem, completing the merge. Whenever the stone golem moved, the gem on its back would flare like fire. Xiao Ming couldn't help but wonder, could this gem be the key to controlling the stone golem? Thus, he asked Yuan to fly him to the golem's back. He wanted to test his theory. Though Yuan was confused, she didn't hesitate, flying Xiao Ming over immediately. At the same time, Nin noticed their maneuver. He instantly used violent rock vines to restrain the stone golem. Xiao Ming and Ziyuan successfully reached the golem's back. Gripping his weapon tightly, Xiao Ming struck unhesitatingly at the gem on the golem's back. Just as he suspected, the fragments stopped reassembling. Xiao Ming shouted to the others, "That gem is its weak point." However, he lost his footing and tumbled off the golem's back. Ziyuan watched him fall, tense. Just then, a huge rock hurtled towards him. Ziyuan reacted swiftly, shoving him aside, but she herself was struck hard by the boulder. Coughing up blood, she collapsed unconscious. Nan immediately ordered Chris to protect Ziyuan, telling Inu to attack the gem. He and Xiao Ming would provide cover. Nan's violent rock vines and Xiao Ming's hammer struck the stone golem simultaneously, successfully diverting its attention. Inu seized the opportunity, striking the gem on its back while it was distracted, shattering it with one blow. The stones making up the golem began to crumble and fall away. One massive piece hurtled towards Xiao Ming. He dodged quickly, but the ground beneath him suddenly cracked open. He cried out as his body plunged into the fissure. Nan watched him fall, his heart filled with dread. Xiao Ming fell into water. Water surrounded him, the current nearly sweeping him away. He couldn't help but regret bitterly why he hadn't learned to swim properly back then. The water gradually rose above his head. He began to recall his experiences in the real world. Since childhood, he had always lived according to the wishes of his elders. Even as an adult, he faced numerous constraints. He couldn't even pursue the one thing he truly loved. Did he truly have no right to choose? Yet, they always used the excuse that it was for his own good. He was already weary of this so-called concern. He turned and went back to his room. Hearing the sounds of accusation from outside, he couldn't help but let tears stream down his face. Submerged in the water, he thought with self-mockery, if he had just listened to their arrangements back then, perhaps he would be leisurely vacationing right now. He felt it becoming difficult to breathe, his chest tight and uncomfortable. Just as he was about to give up, a figure swiftly swam to his side, grasped his hand tightly, and pulled him from the water, then held him close, quickly pressing his lips to his. He began administering artificial respiration. Feeling Xiao Ming respond, Nin rejoiced inwardly. It seemed he hadn't lost consciousness yet, but they couldn't last long like this. They had to get ashore as soon as possible. Holding Xiao Ming, he swam upwards with all his might. As they broke the surface, he managed to grab onto a tree branch. Xiao Ming clung to him tightly, unable to stop coughing once he breathed fresh air again. After spitting out the water, he felt much better. The two reached the bank safely, then set him down. After catching his breath, Xiao Ming couldn't help but sneeze. Soaked to the bone, he felt incredibly cold. Since his space bag had been stolen, he had no change of clothes, then handed him his own clothes. Taking them, Xiao Ming was surprised to find how large they were. He could almost wear them as a dress. After changing in front of him, Nan went off to find wood for a fire. Before leaving, he reminded Xiao Ming to change his clothes quickly. Once Nan was gone, Xiao Ming's face flushed crimson, his heart pounding. He hadn't expected that the mage possessed such an athletic physique. The two sat chatting by the fire. Xiao Ming learned they had been washed downstream. They were now some distance from the underground city. gnawing on an apple, he asked about the giant stone golem. He learned that the moment he fell, the stone golem had collapsed and wasn't too clear about what happened afterwards. He praised Xiaoming for his outstanding performance in the battle. Xiaoming thanked him for saving his life. Just as he was about to say something more, his mind suddenly went blank. He realized he had just received artificial respiration. Remembering the kiss in the water, his face instantly turned beet red. Then noticed something was amiss and asked him what was wrong. Xiaoming covered his face, avoiding the question, claiming nothing was wrong. Inwardly, however, he was wailing. His first kiss was gone, just like that, so muddle-headedly. Thinking about the oysters they had eaten made him even more miserable. His first kiss tasted like grilled oysters, the garlic kind. Night fell, and the two urgently needed to find a place to rest. Xiaoming discovered a cave. They immediately went inside, only to find, to their surprise, that this was actually the Jedi's lair. Fortunately, they not only found their space bags, but also obtained some delicious chicken meat. Xiaoming started to busy himself. After washing the chicken clean, he began preparing dinner. He poured oil into the pot, added onions to sauté until fragrant, then put in the rice, added water, and let it simmer until cooked. Then he stuffed the rice into the chicken. He sealed the opening with small skewers. Finally, he evenly brushed on the previously made seasoning oil. It would need to roast for an hour. Nan was reading a book when he suddenly heard Xiaoming's cry of alarm. He hurried to his side, asking with concern what had happened. Xiaoming held out his bleeding finger. It turned out he had accidentally cut himself. Nan grabbed his hand. Without hesitation, Nan put the finger into his mouth, helping him lick the wound clean. Watching his actions, Xiaoming's heart raced. His finger was actually licked by him. After the bleeding stopped, Nan used magic to heal him. Xiaoming listened to the pounding of his own heart. He kept reminding himself it was just healing, nothing to be shy about. Xiaoming sensed Nan's gaze, hastily turned around, and began preparing dinner again, flustered and clumsy. Nan approached from behind, asking with concern if he had caught a cold. Why was his face so flushed? His hand were also trembling slightly. Nan took hold of the hand holding the knife, wanting to help. Nan's breath brushed past his ear. He suddenly felt tense. He dodged Nan's hand, saying he could manage. He felt the two of them were too close, inwardly complaining. Why isn't this guy moving away already? In the end, he just handed Nan the portion of food he had finished preparing, telling him to eat first. Nan looked deeply at him for a moment, then ruffled his hair. He told him to rest early after eating. He would keep watch. Currently, they were in the downstream area of the underground city. To return to Yately City would take about a day. After reaching the city, they would still need to take a boat to Adlin Island. Hearing all this, Xiaoming already felt a bit overwhelmed. Suddenly, a monster lunged at him from behind. Nan grabbed him tightly, pulling him out of the way, and charged straight towards it. However, for some reason, his magic carried traces of black smoke, and his fingernails had also changed. He looked down, trembling, at the blackness covering his nails. He cut off the praise coming from behind him, alerting Xiaoming. They had to change their plans and head to another of his villas. Something was wrong with his body, requiring treatment at the villa. He had already sent a message to Yin Yu and the others, arranging to meet them in a few days. Hearing this, Xiaoming stepped forward anxiously. He worried if Nan was ill. Wouldn't it be better for them to go into the city? Nan told him not to ask too many questions. Seeing Nan like this, Xiaoming felt something wasn't quite right. By dusk, they arrived smoothly at the villa. Nan pushed open the door, and the two stepped inside. Xiaoming brushed the dust off the furniture, a question forming in his mind. How long had it been since anyone lived here? The dust was surprisingly thick. Nan's words pulled his wandering thoughts back to reality. Nan explained he would stay in his room for the next few days and instructed Xiaoming not to stray too far from the house. Otherwise, he was free to do as he pleased, not even needing to prepare meals for him. Before reaching his room, he reminded Xiaoming once more, no matter what sounds came from the room, he was forbidden to enter. He could only wait for Nan to come out on his own. This was an order. As soon as the words left his mouth, he shut the door. Xiaoming stared at the closed door, finding Nan's behavior utterly strange. What exactly was happening? 3 days passed, and still hadn't emerged. Strange noises constantly emanated from the room these past few days, making one wonder what he was doing inside. Xiaoming couldn't shake off his worry and decided to bring him some food. He prepared a nutritious sandwich and approached Nan's door. Although Nan had told him to wait, so much time had passed, and he wasn't sure if Nan had eaten anything. He'd just go in, place the food on the table, and leave immediately. It would only take a moment. He opened the door to find the room pitch black and eerily quiet. He placed the breakfast on the table. Then he walked to the window and drew back the curtains, noticing it had started raining outside. Just then, a figure reflected in the glass. He heard footsteps. Startled, he spun around, uncertainly calling Nan's name. When he saw those blood-red pupils, he instinctively took a step back, wondering if the person before him was truly Nan. Yet, the voice that came out was undeniably Nan's. He trapped Xiaoming between himself and the wall. This version of Nan seemed different, terrifying. Xiaoming's hands and feet began to tremble. He realized he couldn't summon his powers. The Nan before him kept sniffing his scent. There was a sweet fragrance about him. He lifted Xiaoming's head. The scent emanating from him made Nan's mind reel. This aroma, one that made him yearn to drink it all down, was simply too wonderful. Xiaoming didn't understand what he was saying. Trembling, he asked who he was and demanded to be released. However, the other didn't answer. He had intended to savor it slowly, but the scent was too enticing. It made him want to devour him immediately. Hearing the word devour, Xiaoming's pupils contracted sharply. He tried to push him away. But Nan's strength was astonishing. Pushing him away was impossible. Nan directly reached out, lifting his chin. He lowered his head. Xiaoming felt as if he was about to be consumed. However, the other merely moved closer to his lips, seemingly drawing something out. What was happening? Panicked, Xiaoming reached out, covering Nan's mouth. He seemed controlled by some force. What was that light floating from his mouth just now? At the same time, he felt his own body growing weak and feeble. Before he could figure out the situation, his hands were restrained again, pinned above his head. Nan pushed him onto the bed, demanding he obediently surrender his life force. He shut his eyes in pain, crying out Nan's name. He asked where Nan was, pleading for him to come and save him. Just as Nan was about to feed, he suddenly stopped. His eyes returned to their previous state. He got off Xiaoming, stumbling backward, finally collapsing onto the chair behind him. Hunched over in pain, he asked why Xiaoming had come in. Xiaoming straightened his clothes and sat up, explaining he had entered out of worry, then cut him off. He questioned why Xiaoming had trespassed into this room. He had set up a wind-sealing array, which would nullify magic. Xiaoming didn't notice his tone, solely concerned about what had just happened to him. However, Nan's cold tone still stung him. He emphasized he was only acting out of concern, but Nan replied it was his private matter. Indeed, between them, it was ultimately just the relationship of employer and employee. He had overstepped. Nan sensed Xiaoming's dejection. Clenching his fists, he apologized, admitting he hadn't controlled his emotions well earlier and had spoken too harshly. Xiaoming interrupted him, saying Nan wasn't wrong. It was he who had acted thoughtlessly. In the bathroom, Xiaoming was helping Nan trim his hair. Nan asked him to help cut it shorter. He couldn't help but wonder. Since Nan allowed him to touch his hair, did it mean he still trusted him? Could he dare to think so? Soon, Xiaoming finished trimming his hair. Nan undid his clothes, preparing to bathe, asking Xiaoming to go ahead and prepare lunch first. Xiaoming walked out of the bathroom, his mind still reeling. In this strange world, he had once thought he'd found a place, someone he could rely on. How foolish he had been. Then, he braced himself. Don't overthink it. Just focus on cooking. Indeed, cooking always seemed to lighten the mood. Just as the meal was ready, Nan emerged. Seeing him with his new hairstyle, Xiaoming felt his entire presence had changed significantly. Lunch was char siu pork. The meat here was sweet, yet surprisingly, it paired exceptionally well with the rice. But Xiaoming found his thoughts drifting. He remembered Nan's previously glowing eyes and fangs, now completely vanished. Suddenly, Nan called his name, making him jump with a start. Awkwardly, Xiaoming asked if he wanted more char siu. Receiving an affirmative nod, he immediately rose to prepare another serving. Watching Xiaoming's hastily retreating back, a look of loneliness crossed Nan's face. Anyone would be frightened by something like this, wouldn't they? Just then, Zian arrived, forcefully shoving open the villa door. Xiaoming wondered why he had come so suddenly, not forgetting to ask with concern about his injuries. However, Zian walked straight past him. Muttering, "Bastard," under his breath, his fist flew straight towards Nan, only to be caught effortlessly. He truly had improved significantly. Xiaoming's life force has become so weak. This must be your doing. As soon as the words left his mouth, another fist struck Nan squarely in the face. You claimed you would protect Xiaoming, yet this is what happens. Don't you know that damage to one's life force is incurable? Zian grew agitated, the movement aggravating the wounds on his body. Xiao Ming watched him, seeing his pain. He quickly stepped forward, urging him to calm down, explaining it wasn't Nan's fault. It was me. I didn't heed the warning. Zian looked at him, his expression filled with heartache. You're the one who's hurt. You don't need to make excuses for him. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through Xiao Ming's head. Clutching his forehead, he pleaded, Nan, just tell him the truth. Please don't fight anymore. Nan remained silent for a moment. I did dilute his life force, he admitted finally. That is an undeniable fact. Just then, Nan noticed Xiao Ming's distress. What's wrong? He asked with concern. But Zian furiously slapped his hand away. Stay away from Xiao Ming. He has me. That's enough. As the two argued, Xiao Ming suddenly collapsed to the floor. After carrying Xiao Ming back to his room, the two returned to the living room. Zian now understood the prior events. He asked Nan if there was anything else he wanted to say. Nan gazed at the dessert before him. Xiao Ming is just an ordinary person, Nan told him. He hasn't undergone professional training. He lacks the ability to adequately protect himself. Zian was also aware of Nan's family situation. Therefore, Nan hoped that if a similar incident occurred again, Zian could protect Xiao Ming properly. If necessary, Nan added, I would even be willing for you to kill me. Just take Xiao Ming and leave. Hearing this, Zian asked curiously, why don't you just dissolve the contract with Xiao Ming? Nan stated that if Xiao Ming wished it, he would readily dissolve the contract without hesitation. A hint of anticipation flickered in Zian's tone, as if he were already prepared to take Xiao Ming under his wing. Nan clenched his fists tightly. We have no right to make decisions for Xiao Ming, Nan declared. Zian slammed his fist on the table in anger. Xiao Ming doesn't need some kind of guardian. With that, he stormed out. Hearing the door slam shut, Nan sat there dejected. Xiao Ming deserved a better future, and he would only bring him endless pain and fear. After a very long voyage, they finally reached Adlin Island. Having checked into an inn in the evening, Xiao Ming began preparing dinner, pan-seared lamb chops. He first rinsed the blood from the chops, washed them thoroughly, patted the surface dry, and marinated them for about half an hour. Afterward, he added rosemary and seared them for 2 minutes until both sides were golden brown. Just as dinner was ready, Mingwei appeared, dressed in formal attire. She invited Xiao Ming to join her at a special banquet exclusively for women. Xiao Ming pondered for a moment, then decided to join the event and went to change his clothes. Mingwei looked at the exquisite dishes Xiao Ming had prepared, a pang of regret hitting her as she couldn't indulge. She quickly followed him, offering to help him change. In the bathroom, Xiao Ming soaked in the water, his thoughts drifting towards Nan. Nan's behavior was utterly baffling. One moment, he could be so gentle it made one's heart flutter, yet in the blink of an eye, he'd turn cold, even terrifying. It was truly perplexing. After changing into his formal attire, Xiao Ming sought everyone's opinion. Seeing him dressed this way, Nan and Zian were both undeniably stunned. Zian praised him, calling him cute and remarking that the outfit suited him perfectly. She even offered to escort him, worried for his safety. But Xiao Ming assured her he would be quite safe traveling with Mingwei. Nan, who had remained silent, reminded them both that women had gone missing here before, and the culprit was still at large. They absolutely had to be careful when going out. Ever since the incident at the villa, Nan had started to intentionally distance himself from Xiao Ming, clearly because of what had happened. Inyu had also vaguely sensed that the atmosphere between the two had turned strange. Things had been fine before. Nan must have done something. She linked arms with Xiao Ming, reminding him it was getting late and they should leave. Zian urged them to return early and to send a message if anything happened. At the banquet, Xiao Ming found himself captivated by the delicacies of this world. He excitedly took a bite of a delicious dish. However, he noticed a peculiar phenomenon. Everyone was chatting, but no one was eating. Just as he sat down, Inyu sidled over, finally able to have a proper private chat with him. Xiao Ming held his drink, looking utterly bewildered. Was there something they needed to discuss privately? Of course, it was about women's matters. Unexpectedly, Inyu asked him if he had dumped Nan. Xiao Ming was so startled by the sudden question that he sprayed out the drink he had just sipped. Xiao Ming suddenly began coughing violently. Wiping tears from the corners of his eyes, he hastily clarified to Mingwei that she had misunderstood. There was absolutely nothing like that going on. Where did this talk of dumping even come come from. Minghua looked astonished. The atmosphere between the two really did invite speculation. It seemed she had been overthinking things. Seeing Xia Meng's unnatural expression, Yinyu concluded that Nan must have done something to him. She gently pulled Xia Meng closer, urging him to tell her what happened, promising she would help him get even. Meanwhile, back at the house, Nan felt a sudden chill for some unknown reason and couldn't help but sneeze. Xia Meng recalled Nan's abnormal behavior and confessed the truth to Yinyu. Those few days, Nan had locked himself in his room, and his entire demeanor was somewhat different from usual. Thinking about it, he couldn't help but hug himself tightly. Minghua clearly knew what Xia Meng was referring to. After all, she and Nan had grown up together. Xia Meng put down his cup, his expression slightly downcast. He felt you must know something about Nan's situation. Yet she had never revealed even a hint to him. He told Yinyu he had entered Nan's room, not expecting her to be shocked that he had come out unharmed. Xia Meng quickly waved his hands, suggesting perhaps he was just lucky that Nan had happened to return to normal right then. Xia Meng desperately wanted to know what was wrong with Nan. Yinyu sighed. Seeing Xia Meng's worried face, Yinyu decided to tell him the truth. But she warned him to keep it locked away in his heart after hearing it, and not to reveal it to anyone. Nan was undergoing demonization. It was a curse unique to their family. 900 years ago, during the God-Demon War, the continent of Dylan was on the verge of being overrun by the demon race. The powerful figures of various nations joined forces to seal the demon god. Just as the seal was about to be completed, the demon lord cast a curse upon the leader at the time, Floric Xena Hill, Nan's ancestor. The curse would cause him to slowly demonize, turning into a demon. A person undergoing demonization cannot control themselves. Therefore, a special demon sealing room was established to imprison the demonized individual. So, whenever an undergoes demonization, he locks himself in that room, allowing no one near to avoid harming those he cares about. Having explained all this, Yinyu turned her head and asked Xia Meng, "Is Nan angry?" His anger proved he cared about him, feared hurting him. Xia Meng, puffing his cheeks slightly, told Yinyu that what frustrated him most was Nan never saying anything, even claiming Xia Meng didn't need to know, always speaking in riddles. Meanwhile, back at the house, Nan sneezed repeatedly. Xian, looking slightly disgusted, told him to keep his distance. Yinyu comforted Xia Meng, telling him not to be angry, and mentioned that the Baron of the banquet was a handsome man capable of making all the women in the city scream for him. He would invite the most beautiful woman to the palace for dinner. This piqued Xia Meng's curiosity about the Baron's appearance. Yinyu was going to pick flowers. Xia Meng didn't want to go along and decided to wait there for her return. Not long after Yinyu left, the banquet suddenly became lively. It turned out Lord Baron Bell had made an appearance. Xia Meng observed him. He was indeed handsome and dashing, but surely not enough to provoke such a fervent reaction. Just then, the Baron walked up to him, extended his hand, and invited him into the palace. As Xia Meng met the Baron's gaze, he felt as if enchanted, mechanically placing his hand upon the Baron's. To receive the Baron's invitation was his honor. After Minghua returned home, he anxiously asked if Xia Meng had come back yet, then immediately stood up, concerned, asking what had happened. Minghua frantically explained that the two had briefly separated on the way, and when he returned, Xia Meng was nowhere to be found. Then calmly comforted him, telling him to cool down. They considered where Xia Meng might have gone. Yinyu, gradually calming down, suddenly remembered that Xia Meng might have been invited into the palace, where a beauty pageant banquet was being held. The winner would get the chance to stay and tour the palace, and the Baron would select the most outstanding beauty among them for dinner. Then pondered for a moment. If that were true, Xia Meng would surely have left a message. He turned to Xian, asking if he could sense Xia Meng's location. Xian indicated he could only sense his general direction. He seemed to be near a luxurious and spacious building to the northeast, possibly in an underground cellar, though not precisely. Xian felt Xia Meng was physically unharmed, but sensed something subtly wrong. That location was exactly where the banquet was being held. If he was invited, why would Xia Meng be in a cellar? It was truly baffling. Yinyu clenched his fists, blaming himself entirely, regretting his insistence on attending that banquet. Chris gently patted his head. It was an accident. No one could have foreseen it. He didn't need to blame himself. The priority now was to find a way to retrieve Xiaoming. Zian, puzzled, suggested why not just break in to find him. Nan cursed him for being an idiot. Forcibly entering the Baron's palace would not only cause trouble, but also endanger Xiaoming's safety. Inu had a flash of inspiration, proposing a plan to infiltrate quietly without alerting anyone. However, this plan required them to make a small sacrifice. That sacrifice was to disguise themselves to attend the banquet. Hearing the suggestion, the three reacted differently. Zian didn't even grasp the deeper meaning. Time was short, and Inu had no other choice but to resort to this desperate measure. He presented the banquet gowns. Nan, however, backed away repeatedly, unwilling to put on the outfit. Inu teased, "Why be shy? Didn't they often play like this as children?" If he could think of a better way, he wouldn't have to wear it. But had he thought of one? As Inu spoke, a hint of menace crossed his face, and he brought up the previous incident with Xiaoming. He hinted that he hadn't settled the score with him yet, then quickly waved his hands, telling him not to come closer. Chris clung tightly to a pillar, wondering why he had to be the first one tortured. Inu told him to take a deep breath and cut the chatter. The next second, he tightened the belt. Chris nearly couldn't breathe. Next came the makeup, a rather time-consuming task. Inu urged everyone to hurry. He took out several loaves of bread, telling each to take 2 and stuff them into their chests. Once everyone had put on their wigs and arranged their hairstyles, Inu had them stand up and walk around a few times so he could inspect their overall appearance. Nan projected the cool composure, noble elegance, and mature charm of an older sister type. Chris, meanwhile, exuded the pure, innocent, gentle, and lovely aura of a proper lady. Zian adopted the style of a gothic Lolita, outwardly cold, but inwardly passionate, mysterious, and unpredictable. Their transformations were nothing short of perfect. Mingyu inwardly grumbled. What was wrong with men these days? Were they even letting others live? They stepped into the banquet hall. Nan sat down painfully to the side, unable to comprehend why women always chose such difficult shoes to wear. Mingyu slapped him directly, reprimanding his posture for lacking ladylike grace. Zian, however, was feasting heartily. He sensed the presence of magic here. Inu, seeing this, angrily pointed out Zian's eating manners were far too crude. Zian, though eating with gusto, still managed to complain that it wasn't as good as Xiaoming's cooking. Chris curiously asked if dragon people always ate this much. Inu sighed, wishing they could learn from Chris's poise and elegance. Chris quickly explained it was all thanks to his etiquette teacher. Zian stated he sensed a demonic presence. The atmosphere instantly grew tense. Inu pressed Zian, asking if he was certain. Zian affirmed positively, stating the aura was very familiar to her. But weren't the demons expelled long ago? Could this be a remnant from the magic wall incident 9 years prior? There was definitely something suspicious about this banquet. Just then, the banquet hall buzzed with excitement due to the arrival of Lord Baron. The 3 men rated the Baron's appearance as merely average, but Inu gazed at Lord Bell like a love-struck fool, leaving Chris heartbroken beside him. Nan, watching the excited Inu, snapped his fingers lightly. Only then did Inu snap back to reality, feeling embarrassed. Nan explained he had fallen under the Baron's charm magic. At that moment, the Baron walked over and took Nan's hand, simultaneously inviting Chris and Zian. The 3 of them had earned the qualification to enter the palace. Nan watched the Baron kiss his hand, feeling a wave of nausea as goosebumps erupted all over his skin. He noticed a glint of a high-level charm spell flashed in the Baron's eyes. Nan, feigning enchantment, graciously accepted Lord Bell's invitation. Inu watched their retreating figures, a seed of self-doubt beginning to sprout. Am I not beautiful enough? Inside the palace, the Baron was in high spirits, having acquired so many beauties today. He lifted Nan's chin, his gaze filled with admiration. You are like the brilliant stars in the heavens. He even wrapped an arm around Nan's waist, igniting a fury within him. Nan wanted nothing more than to kill him on the spot. Hearing the Baron call Nan little darling, the 2 behind them couldn't stifle their laughter. Nan shot them a warning glare, silently commanding them to hold it in, not to let a sound escape. They stepped into Lord Baron's collection room. The sight before them was shocking. Bodies were sealed within magic mirrors, a magic unique to the demon race. Suddenly, Nin spotted Xiaomeng's figure. Xian sensed he was unresponsive. The sealing process was nearly complete. The Baron planned to deal with Xiaomeng first, then dress them up beautifully. Nin violently grabbed the Baron's shoulder, slamming him to the ground. "What are you planning to do to Xiaomeng?" he demanded. "Why are there so many demon essences here?" The Baron, sprawled on the floor and aching all over, couldn't understand why Nan remained clear-headed. Nan explained, "Your charm spell has no effect on me." Disbelieving, the Baron shifted his body, looking up at Nan with newfound admiration. "Truly, a perfect angle. It stirs something within," he murmured. Hearing such shameless words, Nan kicked out, unexpectedly knocking the Baron unconscious. Just then, an eerie energy emanated from the Baron's body. "Who dares," a new voice questioned, "to disturb my affairs?" The creature saw through their disguises as men dressed as women. Its fury intensified, and it launched an immediate attack. Facing the blow, Nin thought of Xiaomeng behind him and didn't dodge, taking the full force of the hit. Xian attacked while trying to discern the opponent's identity, but the creature was faster. The demon was surprised. "There's still Dragonkin alive? I thought the war 900 years ago wiped them all out. Since that's the case, let me be the one to make the Dragonkin disappear completely." Nan instantly used a freezing spell, encasing the demon in ice. The creature was stunned. To think I could be frozen within my own barrier. Only then did they realize they were inside a barrier, explaining why they couldn't use their full power. The demon shattered Nan's ice spell. Seeing Nan's wound bleeding profusely and refusing to heal, it sneered. "The taste of a curse isn't pleasant, is it?" Chris seized the opportunity, attacking while the demon was distracted. Wounded by the strike, the demon noticed the holy weapon in Chris's hand. "Royalty? Here." It wiped the blood from its lips. "A pity, but no matter. I don't need these magic mirrors anyway. I've already found something better." With that, the demon vanished in a flash. Xian clutched his chest, cursing, "Damn it, he got away." The people controlled by the nightmare collapsed one after another. They had to leave immediately. Nin picked up Xiaomeng, instinctively calling his name. In his slumber, Xiaomeng seemed to hear Nan's voice. Opening his eyes, he gasped, "Wow, I never thought I'd see such a beautiful sister." Someone beside him explained, "This is the cellar. You were hypnotized by the nightmare and brought here." Xiaomeng's eyes lit up as he gazed at the beautiful girl, but he felt a sense of familiarity. Xian ripped off his wig. "Since he's all right, we should head back." Xiaomeng was stunned. The beautiful girl was Xian. No wonder he looked so familiar. He looked towards the beautiful older sister, holding him. Could it be Nan? He was about to exclaim when Nan covered his mouth. "To sneak in and save you. This was the only way." Xiaomeng grasped Nan's hand, sincerely thanking everyone. Suddenly, he saw the blood on Nan's hand and asked worriedly, "Why aren't you using magic to heal?" Nan pulled his hand back, dismissing it. "It's nothing serious. A few washes with holy water back home will fix it." "Nothing serious?" Xian retorted. "You say that so lightly when the wound won't even close. That nightmare we just fought wasn't some small fry. Its attacks carry potent curses, and the curse has already seeped into your body. Curse wounds aren't healed by simple treatment." Xiaomeng looked anxious, wanting to touch the wound, urging Nan to use holy water immediately. He then turned concernedly to Xian, asking if he was hurt too. Nan grabbed Xiaomeng's hand. "Now is not the time. People here are starting to wake up. We should leave." Just then, the Baron stirred, rubbing his head. Confused about why he was there, his attention was caught by Nan's voice. He walked over, wrapping an arm around Nan and declaring passionately, "Your graceful figure, like the stars in the heavens, shining brightly." Nan began to seethe. "This is so annoying." He asked Xiaomeng for the spatial pouch, preparing to retrieve something. Xiaomeng handed it over, puzzled. Watching him produce an item only deepened Xiaomeng's confusion. Meanwhile, the Baron over there remained oblivious to the impending danger, still showering Nan with effusive praise. Nan, finding it utterly unbearable, sent the Baron flying with a direct hit from a frying pan. His spirits finally lifted considerably. He wasn't worried about being captured. Once the makeup was off, the Baron wouldn't be able to find him anyway. Xian, standing nearby, urged the two to hurry. He needed to get back quickly and change out of this attire. Xiaomeng, however, wished they could wear it a little longer. It looks so good. What a pity to take it off. Regarding the Baron's kidnapping of women, since Chris and Ian were present, they needed to stay behind to investigate further. Thus, Xiaoming, Nan, and Xian set off towards the misty forest. As Xiaoming carefully treated Nan's wound, he apologized. It was to save him, but they had ended up in such a predicament. Xian quickly reassured him, stating Nan was one of his own. Naturally, he had to rescue him when danger arose. Nan touched the already treated wound, aided by holy water and Xiaoming's special concoctions. The injury was healing rapidly. Listening to their comforting words, Xiaoming clenched his fists, thinking inwardly, if only I knew magic, I wouldn't have been charmed. If that were the case, they wouldn't have had to battle the nightmare, and Nan wouldn't have received the curse. That magic specifically targeted females anyway. Even if he mastered the most powerful spells, he still couldn't have resisted that nightmare's enchantment. Xian interjected that Inu had also been charmed back then. That expression was absolutely hilarious. As dusk began to fall, Xiaoming rose to prepare dinner. He waved off Xian's offer of help, not wanting his assistance to turn into hindrance. He took out dough that had already undergone 2 fermentation cycles, divided it into equal portions, punched them down to release air, rolled them into flat discs, placed the dough onto a pan, and began to bake. After 5 minutes, he spread a special pizza sauce over the base. He sprinkled shredded cheese and chopped ingredients, then added another layer of cheese, continuing to bake until it turned golden brown. Xiaoming yearned for strength. Lost in contemplation, he failed to notice the figure lurking behind him. He wished he could become powerful instantly. The nightmare behind him heard his thoughts, a sinister smile twisting its lips. Soon, the pizza was ready. He urged everyone to eat while it was hot. Xian and Nan stared at the stringy, gooey flatbread with wide-eyed amazement. Xiaoming explained, "This is called pizza in my homeland. It's one of the most popular foods." After dinner, they gathered around the crackling fire. Xiaoming sat listening to the conversation between the other two, and before he knew it, he began to yawn. He jolted awake abruptly. He had actually dozed off just now. Nan told him to go rest first. He wouldn't need to stand watch tonight. Seeing his hesitation, Xian also encouraged him, "Go sleep. There aren't any formidable magical beasts around here. Nan and I will take turns keeping watch." Xiaoming was indeed feeling quite weary. Bidding them good night, he went off to rest. Once he drifted off to sleep, a luminous mass quietly seeped into his mind. In his slumber, he found himself in a place that felt strangely familiar. A soft voice whispered, asking if he yearned for power. It possessed the ability to grant him immense strength, provided he was willing to meet its conditions. Then, his wish could be fulfilled. Nan heard his pained murmurs. Xian, too, found his sleep disturbed by the sounds. Nan noticed the magical sigil glowing on Xiaoming's forehead. Clearly, the nightmare was responsible. He clenched his fists, cursing under his breath. Several days had passed, and none of them had realized this. Xian, too, had vaguely sensed that Xiaoming had been unusually anxious lately. His mental fluctuations were severe. Combined with the earlier incident, the nightmare had found an opening to invade Xiaoming's inner world. They had to awaken Xiaoming immediately. However, individuals controlled by a nightmare rarely awaken on their own, unless the nightmare chooses to withdraw. Nan resolved to enter his inner world and expel the entity. Seeing Xian's questioning gaze, he explained that he had once studied this form of magic, though he wasn't certain of success. He needed Xian to stabilize Xiaoming's mental state as much as possible. Xian agreed, though his primary concern was Nan's own physical well-being. Nan reassured him, "As long as you can keep him stable, my chances of success will increase significantly." Xian instructed him sternly, "If the situation takes a bad turn, pull out immediately. We'll find another way," and told him not to worry. Stabilizing Xiaoming's mental fluctuations is up to you now. He stepped into Xiaoming's inner world, finding the architecture peculiar. The clothes he now wore also felt strangely uncomfortable. However, encountering oddities within a dreamscape was only to be expected. Just then, a voice echoed, inviting the bride to prepare at the entrance to the venue. He walked closer, curious, only to discover with astonishment that the bride waiting there was none other than Xiaoming. Nan, outside the door, screamed his name hoarsely, watching helplessly as he was about to step into the wedding hall. Burning with anxiety, Nan glanced around and spotted what seemed to be a passageway ahead. He hastily pursued Xiaoming, calling out his name. Finally, he caught up. He urgently pressed him, asking where on earth he was going. Xiaoming replied that he had to complete the wedding ceremony. Nan's eyes filled with bewilderment, but Xiaoming abruptly wrenched his hand free. He stated firmly that once the ritual was complete, he would obtain that thing he had yearned for in his dreams. Nan watched him. He thought grimly. Nightmares usually imprison their victims with endless scenes of terror, thereby controlling their minds and bodies. But here, the situation is the complete opposite. He quickly grabbed Xiaoming's arm, demanding to know what he truly desired. Xiaoming retorted, "Does that even need asking? Power, of course. As long as I complete the ritual with him, he will grant me the power I desire. In the group, I'm always the burden, always needing others' protection. I don't want to be the one protected anymore. I want to become strong, someone who can protect others." Nan gripped him tightly, refusing to let go. "This price is far too great. Won't you regret this?" But Xiaoming resolutely shook off his hand. The ritual is about to begin. He continued forward with unwavering determination. Nan yelled desperately from behind him, trying to awaken him. "This is just a dream. Don't let the dreamscape dictate your thoughts." Just then, a brilliant light shone upon them. It was Xian outside the dream, reminding him, "Xiaoming's mental fluctuations are becoming increasingly violent. If this continues, we won't be able to suppress it. Hurry up." It seemed time was critical. There was no other way. He would have to use force. The officiant was proclaiming the vows. Nan stared in astonishment at the person performing the wedding ceremony with Xiaoming. "Why is it him?" Just then, the officiant repeated the vows to Xiaoming. Xiaoming didn't know why he suddenly hesitated. He thought, as long as I complete the ritual with him, I can become strong immediately. As if having reached an understanding, Xiaoming lifted his head, his gaze firm. Just as Xiaoming was about to nod in agreement, Nan rushed forward frantically and seized him. His body tilted backward involuntarily. Nan swiftly caught him in an embrace. He resolutely prevented him from agreeing to the other party. He stared intently at him, his voice firm. "You are already mine. Have you forgotten?" Under Xiaoming's incredulous gaze, he told him, "In my heart, you are irreplaceable, the most important person." Hearing these words, Xiaoming's heart began to pound violently. The other continued, telling him that the reason he protected him wasn't because of any promise, but because he didn't want him to suffer any harm, not even the slightest bit. He looked earnestly at Xiaoming. "You can rely on me more." The nightmare entity cursed under its breath, striking out at him with a furious palm. Nan was hit, his body slamming into something behind him. This time, success had been merely a step away, only to be interrupted at the critical moment. The nightmare entity glared at the enraged Nan. It recognized him, the pervert who had disguised himself as a woman last time, deceiving him. And now he was here again, ruining his plans. Hearing the accusation, Nan retorted furiously, "I was the one being held and kissed by you. It ruined my appetite for days. Who's the real pervert here?" Beside them, Xiaoming wore an expression of horror. What on earth had he missed during the time he was unconscious? The nightmare entity clutched its chest, realizing this woman had regained consciousness. It had to revert to its original form. It instantly vanished from Xiaoming's dreamscape. Now, the nightmare, affected by losing dominance over the dream, was vulnerable. This was the perfect opportunity to expel him using magic. However, the next second, the magic he cast dissipated within the dreamscape. It seemed the dream had become a place where magic was unusable. Only physical combat would work. Nan lunged towards the nightmare entity, but was blocked. The nightmare entity countered, grabbing his arm and executing a shoulder throw, slamming him onto the ground. Nan's body crashed heavily onto the crystal platform. He spat out a mouthful of blood. The nightmare entity lifted its foot, preparing to stomp on Nan's injured arm. Its attitude was utterly arrogant. "A rather nice gift I sent, wouldn't you agree?" Xiaoming rushed forward in fury, grabbing the nightmare entity. "Let Nan go, quickly!" The nightmare entity kept its foot planted on Nan, a mocking smile playing on its lips as it provoked the magic-less Nan. It claimed he was utterly no match for it. Hearing Xiaoming demand he release Nan, a cunning glint flashed in the nightmare entity's eyes. He seized Xiaoming's hand. "Let him go. Of course I can, but on condition that he must complete this ritual with him right now." Xiaoming gazed upon the unconscious Nan, his heart torn with conflict. Seeing his hesitation, the nightmare seized the moment, pulling him forcefully into its embrace, tempting him. Complete the ritual, and not only would he gain immense power, but it would also spare Nan. It threatened Xiao Meng, urging him to decide quickly, for its patience was wearing thin. Xiao Meng drew a deep breath, his resolve hardening as he firmly rejected the nightmare's allure. Then, with a surge of strength, he broke free from the nightmare's grasp. As the entity watched in disbelief, the magical sigil etched upon Xiao Meng's forehead began to crack. He glared at the nightmare, denouncing the demon who only brought harm to those he cherished, demanding it get out of his dream immediately. Suddenly, a dazzling power radiated from Xiao Meng, a force potent enough to shatter the nightmare's magic. He carefully helped Nan to sit up, his voice thick with guilt as he lamented that if only he could wield magic, Nan wouldn't have ended up in such a wretched state. The wound he had painstakingly tended to had split open again, and it was all for his sake. If only he could be stronger. Nan gently drew him into his arms, murmuring for him not to blame himself. Any injury suffered for him, Nan insisted, was a badge of honor. Besides, he needed him. Just moments ago, he had single-handedly broken through the nightmare's magic and driven it away. He wasn't weak at all. He needed to believe in himself. Back in the forest, Xian saw Nan's eyes flutter open and, finally succumbing to exhaustion after the night-long vigil, collapsed onto the ground, his eyelids heavy with sleep. Nan shifted, intending to find a more comfortable position, only to be met with a stinging punch to the face, swiftly followed by an invincible leg-breaker kick. Utterly disoriented, Nan then remembered the wildly sleeping Xiao Meng beside him. Stirred awake by the sunlight, Xiao Meng spotted Nan. He yawned, admitting he still felt a bit drowsy. Clutching his blanket, he told Nan it felt like he'd had a very long dream. He hugged the blanket tighter, his gaze flickering away, unable to meet Nan's eyes. Because in that dream, Nan had told him that he was the most important person, someone utterly irreplaceable. At the thought, a fierce blush spread across Xiao Meng's face, and he quickly buried his face in the blanket. Nan watched his reaction, then turned away, slightly embarrassed himself, softly assuring him it was just a dream, nothing to dwell on. How could he possibly have such a dream? Xiao Meng wondered inwardly, dreaming of Nan, saying things that sounded almost like a confession. He was about to get up and leave when Nan called out to him. Then, Nan placed something around his neck. It was a magical necklace, consecrated through sacred rites, capable of shielding him from demonic attacks. Xiao Meng gasped in surprise. It was a ruby pendant, and hidden within it lay a complex magical sigil. Clearly, this was no ordinary necklace. Realizing its significance, he turned back to Nan, protesting that he couldn't possibly accept something so precious. But Nan looked at him intently. To him, Nan stated seriously, Xiao Meng's life was infinitely more valuable than this necklace. Xiao Meng fell silent, no longer refusing, and promised he would treasure the necklace. Nan reminded him again not to take off. Suddenly, the memory of Yin Yu's teasing expression surfaced, prompting him to add an urgent instruction. Xiao Meng must hide it well, ensuring no one ever saw it. Especially not Yin Yu, that incredibly irritating person. Much later, Xiao Meng would learn that this necklace was, in fact, a keepsake from Nan's late mother, her most beloved treasure. On the other side of the forest, the nightmare clutched its chest, reeling. It couldn't believe Xiao Meng had managed to injure it so severely. Who was he really? It wondered, and a person possessing dual souls, no less. Coupled with that man, the one with the unique hair and eye color, things were certainly becoming more intriguing. Today, Xiao Meng decided to challenge himself by making pancakes from scratch. He carefully separated the egg whites, then added sugar and began to whisk them into peaks. As he worked, his thoughts drifted to the ruby resting against his chest, the gem known as the Stone of Love. It glowed with a light as passionate as fire, a symbol of love's beauty, eternity, and unwavering faithfulness. A faint warmth crept into Xiao Meng's cheeks. Although he knew the gem's primary purpose was protection, its profound symbolism still sent ripples through his heart. He shook his head slightly, determined to banish the distracting thoughts and focus entirely on making the pancakes. After successfully preparing the pancakes, Xiaoming found himself irresistibly contemplating other culinary creations. Without quite realizing it, he picked up a knife, sliced a sausage, inserted toothpicks, and arranged the pieces into a perfect heart shape. What on earth has gotten into me? He couldn't help but wonder. Just as Xiaoming presented the predominantly sweet meal, Zian finally stirred from his sleep. Xiaoming offered Nan a pancake, certain he would appreciate its soft, delicate texture. Besides, he added, sweets were known to help alleviate fatigue and restore one's spirits. A ghost of a smile touched Nan's lips. He hadn't realized Xiaoming knew his preferences so well. Beside them, Zian began to tease him good-naturedly. How can a grown man enjoy sweets so much? Aren't you worried about getting fat? The words irritated Xiaoming so much he nearly bent the fork in his hand. He retorted that enjoying sweets wasn't limited by age or gender. As a lover of sweets with a tendency to gain weight easily, he firmly believed that as long as consumed in moderation, sweets wouldn't affect one's health. Nan watched the two bicker helplessly, picking up his plate to start enjoying the food. Xiaoming continued his argument. These pancakes possess an irresistible charm. They can even make someone who usually dislikes sweets unknowingly devour several servings. The fog in the forest today was somewhat heavy, and reminded everyone to stick close to the group and not get separated. Behind him, Zian complained, questioning if Nan had taken a wrong turn, feeling like they had been wandering in circles for a long time. Nan suppressed his irritation and asked if he had any better suggestions. Just then, Xiaoming seemed to step on something. "Is this a magic circle?" he exclaimed in surprise. Xiaoming rubbed his eyes in disbelief. He was actually seeing butterflies and flowers, even patches of blue leaves. Just moments ago, it had clearly been an autumn scene. Zian also felt a wave of confusion. Could this be some kind of illusion? Then carefully observed their surroundings. They had finally found the place. At that moment, Zian excitedly pointed in one direction. There lay a massive gemstone, then followed his gesture and noticed something seemed to be flickering inside the gem. He quickly warned everyone to pay attention to what was hidden beneath the gemstone. Suddenly, the thing inside the gem burst out. It was a phantom flutterwing. Sensing their presence, the phantom flutterwing immediately launched a fierce magical assault. Strange objects began to erupt from the ground. With lightning reflexes, Nan pushed Xiaoming aside, but he himself was ensnared firmly by those objects. Xiaoming looked towards him, his heart filled with anxiety. The phantom flutterwing immediately launched a second attack, aimed at Xiaoming. In that critical instant, Zian flashed in front of Xiaoming, blocking the attack with a wave of magic. However, Zian suddenly noticed a black mist spreading ahead. It was the phantom flutterwing's hypnosis technique. Nan anxiously urged him to quickly leave the area of black mist. Unfortunately, it was too late. Zian couldn't evade in time and collapsed directly into Xiaoming's arms. Xiaoming looked at the unconscious Zian, frantic with worry, and could hardly believe his eyes. At such a critical moment, Zian had actually fallen asleep. Nan reminded Xiaoming that this kind of hypnosis wasn't easily broken. He believed he had the ability to wake Zian. Thus, he employed his secret technique, beginning to pinch and prod Zian vigorously. The sleeping Zian suddenly let out a loud cry. He shot upright abruptly. Xiaoming was ecstatic. He had succeeded. However, just then, his back was turned to the phantom flutterwing that he was completely unaware of the danger quietly closing in from behind. Both Nan and Zian urgently shouted Xiaoming's name, trying to warn him of the peril behind him. Zian quickly reached out and pulled him over, but it was still a step too late. The sleeve on Xiaoming's arm was slashed by something sharp. Blood seeped from the wound. Nan gritted his teeth, struggling fiercely to break free from the restraints binding him. He waved the magic in his hand. A wave of fire swept towards the phantom flutterwing, engulfing it tightly. Seeing his chance, Xiaoming rushed forward without hesitation, grabbing the phantom flutterwing. He used his magic to slam it forcefully to the ground. Nan seized the opportunity to tear off the bindings around him, simultaneously shouting loudly, reminding Xiaoming not to act recklessly. This magical beast was extremely dangerous. Xiao Ming had just gotten back on his feet when he sensed something wasn't quite right. Ignoring the shouts from behind him, he threw a heavy punch forward. However, the phantom flutterwing dissolved into scattered petals. Just as Xiao Ming stood there, stunned, a dense cloud of petals obscured his vision. When he opened his eyes again, the phantom flutterwing had transformed into a moth, soaring high into the air. Could this be its true form? Xiao Ming wondered inwardly, then forcefully hurled a fireball towards the moth in the sky. A loud roar echoed through the air. Sparks flew everywhere. Nan walked over, picking up a singed lock of Xiao Ming's hair. He asked gravely, "Do you realize how dangerous that was just now? If Xian and I had been even a moment later, you might have suffered much more than just this minor injury." Xiao Ming lowered his head, explaining guiltily, "I just wanted to contribute more in the fight." Nan looked at him deeply, his tone serious. "I hope that in the future, before you act, you'll consider your own safety first." Facing Nan's stern gaze, Xiao Ming remained silent for a moment, finally nodding to show he understood. Sensing the shift in his mood, Nan sighed helplessly, and told him he would worry about his safety. He gently patted Xiao Ming's head, signaling him to change into clean clothes first and get a haircut once they reached the city. Watching Xiao Ming's receding figure, then turned to face Xian, his expression grave. He had something to tell her. When Xian turned to look at him, Nan pointed aside. "Let's talk over there." Xian knew in her heart what Nan wanted to discuss. It had to be about Xiao Ming, especially concerning the power that had suddenly surged from him during the earlier battle. From Nan's observation, Xiao Ming didn't seem to be controlled by someone else. That golden power he had never seen before. Could Xian have granted it to him? Xian told him that what she had granted Xiao Ming from her end was only physical attack power. If it were magic power, it should be wind and thunder elements, just like Nan's. Besides, he was fundamentally incapable of using attack magic. This had been verified before. It didn't seem like that nightmare was causing trouble either, because the aura he emitted wasn't like dark magic. He could create food that provided beneficial effects, and also rouse people from demonization. What exactly was Xiao Ming's origin? Nan sighed. It was probably best for them to wait and see. After returning to the Halaya Kingdom, they could consult the palace records to see if there were any related entries. Xian agreed with this. For now, this was all they could do. Xiao Ming watched the two figures in the forest, wondering why they needed to talk privately. He let down his hair, fastened his clothes properly, and after a moment's thought, decided to make pan-fried fish. He hadn't made it in a long time. He believed Xian would be very happy. He cleaned the fish meticulously, removed the innards, then washed it and patted it dry. He sprinkled salt and cooking wine over it, adding a few slices of ginger to marinate for half an hour. Using this time, he started preparing chawanmushi. Before long, dinner was ready. Xian caught the aroma, and a happy smile spread across her face. "Fish for dinner. That's wonderful. Fish really is the best." Xiao Ming asked about their upcoming itinerary and learned they were returning to the Halaya Kingdom. This time, they needed to make thorough preparations before heading north, because their destination for this trip was a dungeon located in the Highlander domain. That was the oldest residential area in the northern part of the Dylan continent. The Dylan continent was divided into two regions based on terrain: the southern non-highland region with distinct seasons, and the northern highland region perpetually covered in snow. Seeing Xiao Ming completely ignorant of this common knowledge, Xian couldn't help but look at him, finding it rather strange. How could he not even know these basic things? Cold sweat instantly beaded on Xiao Ming's forehead. He didn't know how to explain. These were things even a 3-year-old would understand, yet he didn't know them. Where exactly was his hometown? He hastily explained that he had suffered a severe head injury before, and some things were still unclear to him. He looked at Xian, inwardly frantic. Damn it, his explanation didn't seem convincing. Just then, inspiration struck, and he pointed towards Nan. "You can ask Nan. He was the one who saved me back then." Nan, terrified Xiao Ming might mention the previous incident where he'd been injured by an explosion, quickly jumped in to help explain, facing Xian's persistent questioning. The two began to purposefully deflect and evade. One was afraid of being captured for research. The other was hiding. The fact that he had once injured Xiao Ming in that explosion. Xian watched the two go back and forth and couldn't help but pick her nose. Is there something seriously wrong with these two? After a long 2-month journey, they finally returned to the Halaya Kingdom. At this time, Snowflakes had begun to drift down onto the land. Xiaoming spent most of his time holed up in the kitchen, creating various delicacies, while Ing Yu and Chris went to the military headquarters to handle some matters. Nan and Xian were also busy from dawn till dusk, utterly swamped. Xiaoming prepared some thin pastry dough, placed it in a cold place to freeze solid. Once frozen, he retrieved the dough and used molds to cut out shapes. Then he placed them in the oven to bake until the surface turned golden brown. Different ingredients would yield different magical effects. Xiaoming shaped the cookies into the likeness of each person, imagining their reactions upon seeing them, and couldn't help but chuckle foolishly. He glanced at the cookies whose magical effects weren't quite right, deciding to put them away first to be enjoyed later as ordinary cookies. Checking the time, Xiaoming knew it was time to head out. Today, he and Yingyu had arranged to go shopping. In a fitting room in the noble district street, Xiaoming was trying on clothes. Because Yingyu couldn't get away due to an urgent meeting at the military headquarters, she had asked Nan, who happened to be heading back anyway, to come in her place. This feeling, it was just like they were on a date. This made Xiaoming feel somewhat nervous. But then he reconsidered. It was just shopping. What was he getting worked up about? After trying on several outfits, Xiaoming came out to ask for Nan's opinion. He really didn't know which one to choose. Nan thought this particular set suited him very well. Xiaoming felt quite satisfied with it too. Only the price made him hesitate. The entire outfit cost over 200 gold coins. He couldn't help but feel a pang of frustration. When he went shopping with Inwa before, he'd never seen clothes this expensive. 3 months savings, his little piggy bank couldn't handle it. Although he really liked both outfits, Xiaoming decided to buy only the one with the hat. He'd think about the one he was currently wearing next time. At this moment, he still didn't know that the clothes he admired had already been quietly bagged up by Nan. As he prepared to return to the fitting room to change back, Nan stopped him. They could leave now. Xiaoming asked him to wait a moment. He'd quickly change back into his clothes. However, Nan told him to just leave wearing the new clothes because he had already bought them all. Xiaoming was stunned. He quickly tried to refuse. These were too expensive. They should return them. He could buy them himself. Nan sighed and said there wasn't time. His restaurant reservation was soon. Besides, he had something important to tell him. Xiaoming looked at him curiously. What important matter could it be? The two walked into the restaurant, and a waiter led them to a private room. Upon entering the room, Nan instructed the waiter to serve the food immediately. Xiaoming sat obediently to the side, feeling the occasion was somewhat formal. He looked at the delicacies on the table, thinking that such a high-class restaurant must serve incredibly delicious food. After taking a bite, he found a meat very tender, just slightly lacking in seasoning, somewhat wasting such fine meat. He looked towards Nan, asking him what important matter he needed to discuss, then took a deep breath and slowly began to speak. Next, they were heading to the hostile Highlander domain. According to frontline reports, signs of Demon Clan activity had been discovered there. Therefore, this time, he didn't have to accompany them. Xiaoming put down his fork in disbelief, urgently asking why. Nan remained silent for a moment, then explained that the situation was different now. The level of danger had significantly increased. This time, they wouldn't just be facing demonic beasts and Highlanders. They might also encounter the Demon Clan. He didn't tell Xiaoming that he had a persistent, ominous feeling about this trip, and that nightmare. It truly made it impossible for him to feel at ease. Leaving Xiaoming home alone, it seemed the protective magic arrays at home needed further strengthening. Meanwhile, Xiaoming was also thinking. He only knew hand-to-hand combat. Not going was indeed safer. He confirmed again, was this trip really that dangerous? Then didn't hide anything. He frankly admitted that it was indeed extremely dangerous this time and told him to make his own decision. He wouldn't force him. Xiaoming's hand secretly clenched under the table. Although Nan's words were tactful, he clearly sensed that Nan didn't intend for him to come along. Suddenly, it was as if he realized something. Not having to go on the trip, wasn't that what he secretly desired deep down? Easy work every day, far from danger. In the last battle, his strength had inexplicably surged, yet it had also become impulsive and irritable, unable to heed others' advice. Although powerful, it could also become a disadvantage. Perhaps it really was better if he didn't go. However, what was this heavy feeling in his chest, this reluctance and intense frustration? Why was he experiencing such emotional turmoil? He didn't want this. He didn't want to be left behind. He wanted to go with them. He desperately wanted to say it. But then again, to Nan, he was just a maid, wasn't he? He didn't want to leave. He wanted to always be by his side, wanted to understand him more. Why did he have such thoughts? This feeling of attachment. It wasn't something he felt for everyone, only for him. Every action Nan took sometimes flustered him, sometimes filled him with joy. He realized he seemed to have fallen for Nan. He looked at Nan, finally resolving to go with them. As support personnel, he would strive to provide them with buffing magic. Besides, life itself was an adventure. In the bathroom, water droplets dripped from Nan's body onto the floor. Time was getting tighter. He had to speed up his preparations.